Mid?
They're mid. And try and talk.
We're not mid, but the mic is
The
mid.
mic is mid. We're definitely
We're
not
down
mid.
for that action. A little midlife crisis.
That's true.
I am a hot mess, honestly. Just one-liners, Monika. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So what's up?
Hi, B. I'm so excited to be here. Oh my God, in Cayman. Let's talk about it.
Yes, let's
This
talk
is so
about
dope. I love it, like the idea of like the let's get into it vibe, and like I like the openness of being able to just talk about whatever. Mm-hmm. Sorry guys, I like the openness. I'm a classic avoidant, you know, so like it's all good. But yeah, I just love the idea of being able to like open a conversation and just like keep it going, because so often I think even from our very first interaction, the very first time you came to see me, I was just like, you are so dope, bro. Like you're just so dope, and like I was always like, yeah, you need to have your own show, B. So like seeing this come full circle, it's like 360, like totally crazy reality check for me. Like 4 years later, you're actually doing the thing that I was like, you need to do.
That's true, actually. I actually never thought about that.
Oh my God. I remember that whole conversation. I was just like, how could you not? Like everybody needs to hear your opinions on things. Cause I would watch your stories and be like, you're living in my brain. Like you're living in my brain. Also, I have something to add to that conversation. The conversation about men and women was always the one that I thought you had such a good, like different opinion, and sort of like an unpopular opinion all the time, but it was really truly the classically popular opinion, but people don't talk about, you know. It's like the intrusive thoughts. You are everybody's intrusive thoughts. Right, so right. I love that. I think your podcast should be called Intrusive Thoughts, because literally that's what you are, bro. I think we all have that so much, but it's just nice to be able to have a place where you can come and discuss nuances in our society.
But you're like that too.
Yeah, I am. I'm a therapist. That's what I call a therapist. I wanted to be a classic psychologist. I wanted to do child development psychology when I was young, and that was going to be my focus, because as an African kid, there's only like doctor, lawyer, engineer. What are you doing? You want to go and do hair? What do you mean? Come and sit down. So I was like, okay, I'm going to become a hair doctor. And my dad was like, okay, what is that? So when I became a trichologist, he kind of got a little bit more respect for me, and now he's just like thinks I'm the shit. You know.
So where was this?
Canada. Yeah. I actually went to school at the Pivot Point School as well. I got a scholarship when I left Marvell College, and because I was like one of the only students who'd ever had such a high client retention. Because when you're on the salon floor, you're only there for cycles, right? I would have people who would wait like cycles to come back and see me, like genuinely to come back. And I was a student then. I was like 17, so I think it's really cool now coming full circle, being 42, and seeing how being dedicated to my craft has actually led me to being really truly successful. Yeah, I think a lot of people look down at hairdressers and people who do vocational trades and stuff like that. It's unfortunate, because like really I make more money than all the bitches that are working in the bank. You know what I mean? I'm like, you're cashing my check. Do you feel away right now? Because you just encouraged your daughter to go work at the bank, but you should have been encouraging her to go and find her passion. You know, I think like when people think that passion is flights of fancy, it's really annoying, because not only are creatives so needed in the world, we are like genuinely the lifeblood of it. So I think it's the coolest thing to get to see life come so full circle, not only for you, but like watching you actually live your passion. I remember when we first met, you were so dejected about not only the direction that film was going in Cayman, but the opportunities here, and like you were just like off, you were not feeling it. And like to see not only you create a whole brand and business and podcast and company doing what you love, but also getting a chance to spearhead projects and do things that Cayman just has not had here before. I think it's really interesting. Sorry, I haven't even let you speak yet. That they're like this new Secret Singing Paradise show, like how it's spurning such an interesting conversation here. I cannot wait for us to get into that. I have so many opinions. I have so many opinions. But it's cool because people
it's
are
the
not,
overall, the whole
bringing something new.
Yeah, there's a new spirit, and there's lots more opportunities and different things happening.
I'm really excited about it.
And it is coming full circle a little bit.
100%. And also like this next generation is so much more in control of like what we are seeing and hearing in Cayman, as opposed to the old people who are very much begrudging of change. And so to see after COVID so many new businesses and brands and things that are actually really creative strongholds in the community that are actually burgeoning new businesses and new ideas and it's flourishing in Cayman. It's not just a startup that doesn't do well. It's like literally like you're making money doing what you love to do. To see that is so cool because it's also encouraging the young people here to become entrepreneurs, which I think, like, even when you said, when I walked in to the Small Business Development Association, like, for us to be able to have something like that here, but small business owners don't really know about it and aren't really like, I don't know about it, and I own a very, like, actually not even just small now, like, but a much bigger small business that I started with nothing, right? And so, like, to know that I have a support system here and other modalities of, like, ways to do stuff here, that's very cool. I just love that, and I love that for you.
Yeah, I you know, the last podcast that we had with Althea, the director of the Small Business Development, she was saying that she thinks that that's actually like the thing that the Caribbean needs the most.
I agreed.
Right?
Agreed.
And like, there's a lot of things we think that the Caribbean need.
Agreed.
But like I told her, I never thought about it. I never thought that entrepreneurism would be the thing that the Caribbean people need, and maybe
when you think
it's
about
right.
I think you're kind of
right,
and the reason why you say that is because what we're used to seeing is mom and pop shops, little shops that buy stuff from like the dollar store or Temu and Alibaba and kind of oversell it. You know, we buy this for $3 and then we're selling it for $30 here or whatever. We see those kind of stores, or we see ones that sell this for $3 and we know it's a piece of crap, right? Yeah. But like, to see small businesses that people are actually taking their passion and not just giving you a small businesses because it's something that they need here, like a small like little store that sells trinkets and food or whatever, but like actually like real small businesses. And I'm not just talking about the car stores or the, you know, like the audio store or whatever that definitely sells something that we need here. It's the nuanced niche businesses that are the cool things and the startups that we actually genuinely need here.
Right.
And like, every time I see a business and not just a building, right. So I saw the Scratch Donuts or whatever is coming, and then the Jolly Joe restaurant on that corner there
by the airport.
Yeah, and that's been needed for such a long time to have some new burgeoning businesses come out, but also to give some lifeblood to the community. We're all tired of eating the same food. Right. If you've lived here for longer than a year, you've eaten the same restaurants, you understand what the food is here. Trying new stuff is kind of like what we enjoy about living in a bigger environment. Like, if you were in Miami right now, there'd be no shortage of food options for you to try. And I think Cayman needs more of that, more food trucks, more taste pop-up shops and different things that we can actually see and feel and touch and like understand why you're passionate about it and see the reason why. But I think also too, it's really great to see branding companies here and advertising companies that work for the middleman and not so much for the big guy, because people like me, like, I have a small advertising budget every year, and I do like 90% of my advertising on my own, and so up until this point I've become very successful just being the face of my business because, well, I'm kind of dope, right? So like, people just want to be near me or whatever, and like, that has helped me so much. But let's say I wasn't as personable, or I didn't have such great people skills or visionary like that, I think it would be much harder, which I also see a lot of people who are really good at their jobs here but are very, very not personable or people persons. They still need that kind of advertising, that kind of thing that emboldens them to understand that young people are instant gratification whores, right? And unless you can give somebody a 7-second clip of what they're gonna get and make it exciting, they're not interested. Yeah. So like, finding those new businesses and stuff is really cool here. I actually look forward to it every time I see one pop up.
Yeah. And you know, in addition to all of that too, like, there's the new AI and crypto.
We use that.
There's a lot of small companies that have popped up in Cayman and are existing. So there's like that element. I've met a lot of those. Now, generally those are expats, but locals are involved as well.
They should be. I think one of the things that I would love to see more of is like encouraging young Caymanians to become shareholders. Encouraging young Caymanians to become business holders here, like business owners, because the trade and business licensing department makes it so easy for Caymanians to own a business here, right? So even if you're not coming in with all the knowledge of how to work this thing, if I'm partnering with you and you understand how to work this thing, and I'm 22 or I'm 25, by the time I'm 32 or 35, I have a fully functioning business with a great partner, and I understand what I'm good at in the business, and my partner understands what they're good at. And I think if we could have more businesses that weren't set up with the idea that, okay, well, you just need a partner, you know, you just need somebody to sign the papers. No, you actually need somebody who's invested in you, cares about the business and wants to see it grow, but has a talent or a skill set as well that can be lent to it.
And not only that, like, I feel like young Caymanians don't even know that they can get a trade in business.
Free.
Yeah,
a micro business is free. Like, I mean generally free. I had to pay, but I know that I like when I just helped one of my young Caymanians do it, and it was basically free, right? So like the idea that they set it up and make it so easy, I feel like if you were a person who is wondering like what you should do, it is partner with somebody who's really great at what they do and open a business that hasn't been discovered here, or that has a very small niche market that you can, like, out of 83,000 people, even if you have 5,000 people who are your clients, that's a huge number, right? Especially if you're giving something of quality and you're offering something of quality to the community, right? So I think that's really, really cool. I love that, actually. I think that's one of the aspects about living here that I thought was the best, was like in Canada, I've always owned a small business. I've been doing hair forever as a sole proprietor. But the opportunities that they give to multinational businesses and bigger companies was always so apparent, like getting a leasehold and doing the leasehold upgrades and trying to advance yourself in a business anywhere in Canada is a lot harder than it is here. And also because you can become a very big fish in a small pond, you have such a captive audience for what you do here that it's like almost impossible not to become successful. Like if you're devoted to what you love, like there's no way you're going to fail. Like how can you?
So what makes Canada more difficult?
Well, I think there's a lot more rules in place, especially direct taxation for businesses. Is like a huge part of it, right?
That hurts already.
Taxes,
end the conversation.
Right. I mean, like, let's just say taxes. You know what I mean? Taxes really suck. But also, like, when you're talking about the things that you invest in for your small businesses here, we want to pay pension, healthcare, and all those things for our staff and permits. But in Canada, you're paying all of that, but you're also paying a large portion of your business in taxation. So it makes it harder for you to make the same amount of money. Like, if I went back home right now with what I have in my bank account, I could buy 6 of my business.
What do you mean 6 different?
I could buy 6 businesses over. I could buy 3 buildings. I could buy a lot. In Cayman, I could. I can't even afford a mortgage here. The fuck? You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, listen, okay, guys, how have I worked this hard and still can't afford a home in Cayman, right? But in Canada, I could afford 3. So I think there's like that juxtaposition that makes it a little bit interesting. However,
it
my
does
money,
make it very interesting.
So if I took my money back to Canada, which Cayman is my home, so I don't really consider Canada my home anymore, and I think that's an interesting piece of the conversation we'll have. But I'm a global citizen and definitely Caymanian in my heart, but I think like the whole like, you came by plane and you came by pain stuff is cool, but at the same time, I spent 16 years here investing in the community and definitely helping a lot more than I've seen a lot of people do. And I think that there's this idea that we come here and we just want to take and take and take, and that's not true at all. But the opportunities that are given to people who are from elsewhere to come here and build a life, build a family, meet their person, all that Cayman curse stuff I find very funny, because the other side of the Cayman curse is that you come here single and you leave mingling, you know what I mean? So like you ain't leaving single, you know what I mean? That's just what's up. So like I think the idea that we have the one side where it's like, yeah, if you come here married, you might face some issues. I came here married. I was really young and really stupid. And I definitely experienced the Cayman curse, but I also created the Cayman curse in my own existence. And I think we are all responsible for our own lives.
That's true.
So genuinely, I do think that the opportunities afforded to expats here are amazing, but I also think that Caymanians have even more opportunity and the ability to be a 60% owner of the business. Like I'm always going to be coming in at a deficit no matter what, but I also feel like that's like you're from here, you own the land, you're part of the culture, you're the people that are coming.
It's an opportunity.
Off of you. That's why
it's lots of opportunities.
That's why I started training Carrie from such a young age, because it was like not only do I get to invest in a Caymanian like to that degree, but I also get to see a young Caymanian become me in the future. And like she'll be able to own my business, she'll be able to become a partner in my business, she'll be able to do all the things, and from the very onset she's well trained, right? So it's not just a bad business owner who's like mediocrely talented coming in and doing something, but literally somebody who has all of the skill set and the education behind it, who can spearhead something amazing for young Caymanians here. And I'm just so excited about it. I actually started doing the apprenticeship with SciFec, because like I think there's this association with SciFec that only like the bad kids go there, or like only the people who are not really intelligent go there, and that's absolutely untrue. But there's so many people who are meant to do vocational studies that are not meant to do the GCXC exam, and like they're being dismissed as non-hireable or undesirable, or because they're in that program it means that they didn't try hard enough.
But I've experienced that with SciFec as well,
100%.
But I completely 100% agree with you. Like I've found like one of the most amazing guys.
Right. And I had, like, I'll give you an example. So I have two young ladies at the same time in my sphere of influence. And one has the opportunity to have, like, she's lighter skinned. She's very, very pretty. She's super tall. She's got all the things that make her a stellar Caymanian. Right. And then I have one who's darker skinned and she's a little bit thicker, but she's extremely talented and bright and a born leader, you understand, but she's already been put in the box where she's not going to be successful. And both of them, whilst in the same program, in the same situation, are being fed different like lanes that their opportunities are going to lead them into just by pretty privilege and just by that idea, and that our society likes lighter skin and will give opportunities to people who are lighter skin and stuff still in 2024. You know, we're literally a week away. Like, don't play with me. So the fact that we're living that experience and that small microcosm of that experience is that they're both in the same exact position, both working in the same place, but one will have to put in maybe 50% effort, where one will have to put in 150% effort to get the same experience and opportunity. And
so what's the cause of that?
Colorism.
Yeah.
100%. And xenophobia, but also colorism mainly here. And it's unfortunate, but it definitely has attached itself to, even when you're in a program like that where it's supposed to be educating you and informing you, you just know that they're being fed messages that give them a little bit less hope and more despair, right? Like,
and it's the fed messages part, which I think is very important.
Much.
Like, what messages are being put into your head for your whole life?
Yes.
Like,
well, good hair, bad hair, light skin, dark skin, plantation mentality, colonialism, and then the mix in all of the expats here who take a lot of opportunities out of the mouths of people who feel like they should have them, but also too are maybe not as educated about what those opportunities that are afforded to them actually really are, right? And so I think a little bit more, like if we were more forward moving in terms of that, like in Canada, for instance, there's a lot of like peer support. There's a lot of like different avenues where you can go and get help, right? Whether it's mental health help or whatever. Here, there's not as many avenues. And I do think that mental health really does affect the stability of every community, right? And so as we're starting to see, because of the fed messages on TikTok and all those other avenues, especially Instagram and stuff like that, we're seeing a lot more people who are mentally unwell. And a lot more people who feel like their anxiety is a bad thing, right? Like I grew up like with ADHD and mad anxiety, but I just thought that was nervous energy. I didn't have a name for it. I didn't have a label for myself. And because I didn't have a label for myself, I didn't hold that as my label, as like the standard of my personality. And so people wear these labels like badges. And I think a lot of times these young people are coming up in the mentality that even though they should never have ever let anybody know that this program was for kids who weren't as exceptional, the idea should be that they are exceptional. They're just exceptionally talented and different. And they have probably like the ability to be a plumber or a mechanic or, you know, a producer on a television show as opposed to somebody who works at the bank, you know, or works in finance or is an accountant or one of those jobs that they consider laudable, right? I think that there's like, if I don't even want to say anything about this because my husband told me not to, but like if people like actually like really knew what hairdressers made, right? Like what the ability for a hairdresser to make in a place where you have 83,000 people and 300 salons, that means you're splitting quite a lot of clients amongst yourself. So even the least amount of clients in a salon could be like 100, right? Amongst 5 people sharing 100 clients in a year, that's still quite a lot of money. And so I think when you tell your child, no, that's for those people, you know, that's not for us, that's for somebody else. When you take away the ability for them to make that choice that maybe I would love to be a makeup artist, maybe I'd love to be a musician, you know, and we say, well, musicians don't make any money, and we have that old adage, right? The artist doesn't make any money, but we're all artists. We're all creating art in some form. So when you say that I have no ability to make money, you disenfranchise me from the very beginning, and you also create a system of disenfranchisement that's going to lead me for generations doing something that I hate trying to make money when I could be making money doing something I love if I was supported correctly.
So are we waking up?
I hope so.
But are we, though?
As a generation, I think that we have, it's twofold, right? We still have a lot of old people here who have a lot of influence in our communities. And then we have a lot of young people who, again, are instant gratification people. So as soon as they're not gratified, they're ready to quit, right? And so like as soon as you're told no, or you're confronted with some kind of indifference, you change your flex, right?
Who are the young people now? What's that generation? Is
Gen Z? I think they're on Gen Alpha. I think they gave them a new name.
Really?
Soon they're going to be called Gen Omega. I don't even know. We're on a different scale right now. I think we're on the Greek scale, but for like kids. So like I don't know what the next generation is going to be, but Gen Z, Gen X, millennials. I'm a millennial, I guess. I think that I'm in that range of 42. I can't even believe I'm that old. But like to say that I am out of the loop of what's cool is ridiculous, because I am what's cool. Right? The young people are just figuring out what's cool. They have no idea. I've been cool since I was fucking young, you know? Now I'm looking at these kids like, well, sis, like you're just catching up. Like I've been wearing one earring and a nose ring since I was 13. You just got a nose ring yesterday. Like you're not cool. You're I'm cool. You know what I mean? The Beatles are cool. Like I don't even know what you're talking about. Like we need to have a discussion about what's actually cool. But I think also too, like the new music is rubbish, new movies are rubbish, like everything is regurgitated, like, and it's secondhand recycled stuff that's already been done. And because there's nothing new under the sun, we're starting to see that this generation is now breaking free of a lot of mental slavery. But they're also now enslaving themselves in a lot of mental health associated
That's true too.
Mess, right? And
That's
so
true too.
We're not just seeing like mentally healthy young people making great decisions. We're seeing mentally healthy people become mentally unhealthy because of the internet.
Right.
So that's the unfortunate part. We have a lot of empowerment on the internet and a lot of ability to see new things and burgeon new ideas, but we also have a lot of like really sick, twisted people who control the world, who definitely want to disenfranchise the middle class and take it out from underneath us.
Yeah, and that's, I feel like, a topic that I hear a lot more now than I used to hear.
Yeah.
And a questioning of the money.
Yes.
And who's making the money. And who's in control of the money?
Well,
and what is money?
Well,
like, you know, like all the questions that...
Well, I think that's one of the things that when you bring up like the Jewish community, you get such kickback, right? But if you've ever lived in Hollywood or New York City, or you've ever worked in the financial industry, or a legal office or anywhere in the world, you know that they have a lot of really, really talented and very powerful people who make a lot of money and control a lot of the wealth and what we see and hear in television and film. I remember when I was first offered my first TV show, like to do a TV show, as actually a reality TV show. And they flew me out to a meeting and sat me down at a table, and the whole table was just Jewish men. And I was like, holy shit, like this is real life. Like I'm actually being offered a real opportunity right now. I also have to sign like 1900 NDAs and like never talk about this again. But like the cool
Where
thing,
was that?
That was in Vancouver. It was the opportunity actually came to me during a time like when after my fiance was murdered here. I had I left Cayman for a little while, and during that time when I was trying to travel and find myself, I ended up thinking that I was supposed to marry this African prince. Listen, if we go there, it's going to be a long conversation.
I've heard about the prince before.
The prince was a lot, but like that was like a time when like there was so much happening in my life, but I was having an out of body experience. So I wasn't really like in the experience as much as I should have been. I lived in Africa in the jungle by myself as a woman, and I didn't even think about it. Like I was just like, I'm going. Like, get me on the plane. Get me on the plane.
So yeah. I couldn't wait to go to Africa.
Yes.
So what? But your dad's from Africa.
Yeah, my dad's Nigerian. And I was in Ghana by myself. And I went to Nigeria as well. Like I had to go back to my homeland so I could really tether myself to the world and sort of figure out. That was in 2013, 14. Like when he died, it was 2013 in October. And then right after that, I had to leave Cayman for quite a while. And so I went to Africa first. It was like after Canada, I just got on a plane and my brother was like, I'm buying you a plane ticket. We're going to go back home. And I was like, my sister in Africa was calling me. She was like, let's go. Who killed him? Let's find out. Let's go and get them, these bastards. You know, so my sister was ready for me to come home and do some juju and like, let's figure it out. You know what I mean? And she was like, we're going to get you a baby. We're going to get you a husband. You're going to be all right, girl. And I was just like, okay. So, you know, I just went home and like, I like had the best time in Africa because not only was I no longer loud and outrageous and gregarious and like something that was offensive to people, I was just myself. Like I was less than my own people because if you have ever met a Nigerian, we are the most like
What?
We're like, okay, Nigerians are brilliant, like bloody brilliant. That's why like they run like all of like the 419 scams and stuff like that. Like anything you've ever seen, like a financial scam, like anything that you think that like these people who are doing pyramid schemes, Nigerians have like created the pyramid. They sit at the top of it and they're running it. The Indians are right below them, but like literally like Nigerians have like topped them. Like the Indians were learning from the Nigerians. So when I say that my people are like extremely intelligent, but they also are really well spoken and like just brilliant like business minds, right? Like there's nothing in Nigeria that they haven't like discovered, created, and made. But they also don't believe in the slave trade. They don't promote the slave trade like that. What do you mean by that? Like when you go to Ghana, you see like a tourism that's based off of the slave trade.
Really?
Right? Like you go there and you see like it's very blue collar, and you go to Nigeria and it's very white collar, right? And the difference is extremely stark because Nigerians are not talking to you about slavery. Like they don't give a shit. They like not only do they not care like about it, but they're not going to ever use that as a reason for you to give them something or like take something from you. Like you'll never hear a Nigerian talk about that shit. Like, oh, on the slave ship, I was sitting there. I'm so sad. You're not going to hear that from a Nigerian. Never, right? But you go to Ghana and they're like, here's the point of no return. Here's where slave ships came out. Let's walk the path where all the white people put us in caves. Like they literally like have like a dedicated tourism to slavery.
Interesting.
Right? And so you understand the diaspora better. You understand like our Pan-Africanism. You understand that like when you come to the Caribbean, you also understand that they really reject their African heritage, even though it's so plainly clear, even in the way that they say Anna and different things like that. And the way like Weyede is just like it's just Nigerian, like it's just African, like pidgin English, right? Even like when you hear Jamaicans speak patois, like Dutch patois is just like the mixture of like Guinean and Nigerian pidgin English with like Dutch and like other influences, right? But to hear like how we represent ourselves or don't understand ourselves, it's a very interesting thing. And I think I fully started to really understand myself as an African, as a Black woman, period, once I experienced Africa. Because even me as being an African and growing up in an African household, I didn't really understand how powerful Africa actually is in our mitochondrial DNA. Like even if you're like 6% sub-Saharan African, you're a badass motherfucker. Like there's just some deep
roots,
shit. right? There's just like you literally are the salt of the earth. And like I wish that Black people really understood like having that little drop makes you like one of God's children, like on the tree, you know what I mean? And I just truly wish that like if like when you go to the Middle East and you understand that like there is no Middle East, it's just Northern Africa, and like if we understood like how the like the Pangea and like all that stuff, like if we understood ourselves a little bit better, then we would understand that we were just the same, and culturally like they're like our DNA is very similar.
And it's like one flow of
100%
life,
our bloodline
just flowing through everyone, and
it's
sort
the
of
coolest
contributing
thing,
to everyone.
like actually to realize that we could be cousins in a different life, and like we don't even know, because generationally we'd be like, okay, well our African blood doesn't matter, you know, you got 3% African, I'm 10% African, I'm 100% whatever, and we just discount the lower percentages, but those are our cousins, those are our family members. And so when I came to the Caribbean, only because I'd experienced colorism in my own family, you know, in my Spanish side of my family and in the lighter skin side of my family. My
Which Spanish side?
So I am actually much mixed. So my mom is Black American, I guess you could say, but in that Black American side, I have like Irish, Native American, like Cherokee Indian, Cuban, and also like Black American. But there's also Jewish in there, like Ashkenazi Jew, and some other white people stuff. So like European white people stuff. So I think even like on the Spanish side it's Cuban, but like in my Nigerian side is my dad, right? So like everything else is just that mix up. But in my whole bloodline in my family, all my cousins are like your skin tone, right? So in my family, my mom married Black, but everybody else on my Spanish side and on my mom's side married light. So all my mom's family members look exactly like you, which is so fucked up and weird, right? Like if I showed you I could show you my light skin. I could show you my family in pictures and you'd be like, where okay, so y'all are some half breeds, and it's like, yeah, because we're all completely mixed up. But my mom married Black, so we just became like 3/4 instead of half or whatever, and mixed down. And so my grandma never used to like us, right? Like I'm gonna say my abuelita did not like us at all. And so like she'd be like, we'd be singing at like me and my brother.
Where was she from?
My grandma's like half Cuban, Black American, and she didn't like herself either. So my grandma's a little bit lighter skinned than me probably, and she would be like, "I'm just a black ugly mother." You know, she would just say like the most ignorant shit about herself. And like growing up, I'd be like, "Why does grandma like not like herself? Like what the?" She would just call herself black and ugly and stuff, but she would also call us that, you know what I mean? And like, yeah, and she did not like the fact that my mom had a white boyfriend before she met my dad, and my grandma thought that was the greatest thing ever, that she should marry the white guy. And when she married my dad, my grandma was so disappointed and like treated my mom not very great because of it. But my grandpa had like 21 kids. My mom was like one of them, but with my grandma they had 8. Right. And so thinking about how my grandpa was a Rolling Stone, when my grandpa was like 86, his girlfriend was like 29. You know what I mean? Like he was a pimp.
Wait, where was that? In
Canada. But my grandpa lived in the States most of the time. So he lived in Las Vegas and outside of Canada. And then he'd come home during the summer and bring like caribou meat and like moose meat and like throw hundreds of dollars on the table and be like, "Hey." You know, like my grandpa was one of those dudes. He showed his love real messed up. But like just seeing how our bloodline like came out and like how all my cousins are such different very tones, it wasn't until I came to the Caribbean where I was like, oh, other people experience colorism in their families and texturism and all that kind of stuff as well. And it's very prevalent here, right? It was when I met Cayman Brackers and they were like, yeah, I'm not from Cayman and stuff like that and weird things. And I was like, oh, it's because you think that they're black and you're not. I didn't understand that nuance, right? Because in Canada, I didn't even know I was black until I was like 9. It was not a thing that was ever discussed. Like nobody ever was like, you're black and I'm white, and the inclusion in Canada is so deep that I had like autistic kids in our school. We had so many, like our classes were all integrated and stuff. I'd never really understood forced assimilation and also segregation that way until I came to the Caribbean. And also as a black person in Africa, for instance, you're just all, look, we're all one. They don't make the distinction unless you're Chinese or you're white, right?
I love the DNA question.
It's so cool.
Yeah, because I feel like there's still so much to learn.
Well, also too, like when you meet Chinese people and you realize they hate dark skin, but they're all 6% black, it's like, ooh, you might want to check that DNA, sis.
Yeah,
Japanese, I mean, when they're like, they find out they're black on their DNA test. That's why you'll never see, like when you go to like the Ancestry DNA page or whatever, they show the videos, you'll never see the Asian people come out with their test results because they're all black on the inside. They hate it. The bleaching cream didn't work, sis. You still got a little yellow in there, and that's because of us.
Interesting.
That's why when you see like Blasians, like black Asians, like Filipinos, Cambodians, Laotians, like you see certain cultures, even Fijians and stuff, Goans, like you see specific racial groups and you know they're black. Sri Lankans. Like, don't tell me. What are you trying to tell me? You know what I mean? You're blacker than me. There's no possible way, son. You know what I mean? Like, you're on the Fitzpatrick scale of 7. I'm a 6. So how the hell? You know what I mean? Like, don't tell me that Africa's not in there.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like, I think the nuanced conversation is even deeper because you, like, the love of self allows you to, like, broaden your horizons a lot more.
Right.
You know, and self-hatred.
And recognizing yourself, learning who you are and coming to terms with that.
Right.
And the similarities that we all share.
It's even when you see,
other.
like, Afro-Latinas do their DNA and they find out that they're African. It's like, yeah, that's the Afro in the Afro-Latina. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand. Oh my God.
I haven't come across
like,
that.
It's so funny. Like when the Dominican people in the Dominican Republic, they hate the Haitians, right? Because they're black. Here, they hate the Jamaicans because they're black. There's this cultural, very like different kind of subversive message that's always sent that the darker your skin, the worse you're in, right? And like, I definitely have felt that and experienced that here on many, many occasions. But I do think that it's getting so much better. I don't know. It's because the old people are all dying, like all the old racists, and the young people just don't care as much because of social media. It being socially like less politically incorrect is a much better vibe.
I always wonder if just racism is always a potential to be there.
Yeah.
Or if it can actually be like eradicated. Yes.
Well, I think that if we all bred with like different races,
maybe the DNA question would help, you know,
well,
come
now,
to some terms.
I think that they said by like, what was it? They said like by 2050, like 60% of the Earth's surface will be mixed race, right? Like they were saying some crazy shit like that. So when you think about like 8 billion people, like the diversity that exists just between like our families, right? So like, let's say you have an Arabic family member, an African family member, Asian family member. Okay, well, if you're all like, you know, in-laws and then we mix down, the next generation of kids is going to be like Blasian, right? So how cool is that? And then you see like Filipino Cayman Caymanians or Honduran Caymanians. 30 years ago, the Honduran Caymanian wasn't a thing. The Cuban Caymanian wasn't a thing.
Right.
And
the Filipino Caymanian was
not a thing, right? And the Jamaican Caymanian always was.
Yeah, that's true. But as far as I can remember.
No, as far as I can remember. As far as Jesus remembers. Okay?
That'd be interesting when the first registered Jamaican came out.
I think that would be a very interesting thing to know. And also like how many generations, because when you have the conversation here, it's really subtle. They'll always tell you that their great grandfather was black. Like it's like they try to make sure that the dissociation between their blackness and their current situation is like several generations. So they'll be like, no, my great grandfather, and they'll limit it to that, even though there's multiple family members in their family that are all black. And by the theory of the one drop, once you have one drop, you are just, it is just what it is. And I think that maybe is more of a Black American ideology, but it definitely is like the way that Black people think. When you pass another Black person on the street, you know what I mean? You're nodding, you're doing something. Like it's just the way that we operate as people of color. And it's always been like that. And it wasn't, I think, until I was probably about, I think maybe 16 or 17, and I was in America, and I had a really strong fear of the police. And I'd never really felt that fear before.
Really? Where was this?
I was in Atlanta, and then I was in, actually, I moved to New York when I was 17 by myself on a Greyhound bus, but we'll talk about that. But like when I got to
we're going to need many podcasts.
There's so many stories. Oh my God.
to touch on all that.
Yes. So when I moved to America the second time after I went to school, I was living in Detroit. And I had a boyfriend. Yeah, I lived in Detroit on 7 Mile in Van Dyke, which is just like right by 8 Mile, if you want to know. Yes, I saw Eminem.
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely had those experiences at East Lansing. Like, yeah, I lived in Michigan for a while because
Car City, industrial town.
Yeah, totally. And it was dead as fuck. Like when I say that Michigan has gone through some things,
was this?
That was in 2000 and let me see. Hold on, let me go back in my brainscape here.
It was
what
dead.
Year? Oh my God, I was 19. I'm 42, so about 22 or 23 years ago, like 2002, 2001, yeah, somewhere around there, like 2003, somewhere in that time frame before I moved to Las Vegas. I was in Detroit, and it was such a dead city, but had so much life, the best food, like the best, like most interesting people, but the most ghetto experience I'd ever had. I'd never seen a city that poor before. I'd never seen an American city that poor before. In every neighborhood, that because there's so many people of color there, they had let it become so run down and so diminished that you would never see that in any other city. Now in San Francisco and places like that, you're starting to see it because it has nothing to do with color. It has everything to do with class, right? And so we're starting to see the poor people of every skin tone and every drug addict be different. And it's not just the crack pandemic in New York where it's Black people that are being subjected to it. It's everybody. Fentanyl and all those kind of things are affecting every community now. So we're starting to see a lot more disparate communities. And so I think it's more, you're able to understand the influx of the horror of what America was like then. But it was the first time I'd ever had a real fear of the police and understood my Blackness was like a scar. Like it was the first time that being Black wasn't like, oh, I can run fast and I can sing good and like I am going to be amazingly talented at something. I can dance. We had all those talents, and I thought that was just innate in being Black. And then I realized that, oh, people don't like that we can sing and we can dance and we can act and we can run, and they don't really love that. Like they love it for if you're the running back but you have a white quarterback. Right? If you see that in football a lot, and it's actually the adage of life really that I noticed is like, okay, it's okay to have the supporting members be Black, but the star has to be white, right? It's like Eminem.
So let's talk about the white question though. Let me be a devil's advocate.
I love it. I am also white, just so you know. I just don't look like it. It's fine.
You're everything.
Yeah.
You're everything.
I am combination.
So in the grand scheme of things, like why did white people like be able to take over the situation?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons. I think one thing is that Black people are very pacifist in a lot of areas. So like we also liked Martin Luther King over Malcolm X for the same reason. He taught them how to like roll over and take it, and Malcolm was like punch him in the face, right? One was socially acceptable and one wasn't. And so like even when you see Muhammad Ali or you see people who are very outspoken as Black people, we are considered like a terrorist. Even myself personally, being as outspoken as I am and as well educated as I am at the same time, it is culturally rebuffed in a lot of areas, or it's not great, right? I'm considered to be like a loudmouth, or like a non-authority on topics I shouldn't be able to speak on, and things of that nature. But I do think that like the lack of ability to understand colonialism or neocolonialism, and also the plantation mentality that a lot of us carry, without really understanding that, like in a society that is less nuanced than this one, we've refined racism. But before, it was just outright, right? Like they considered us monkeys. They decided that we were a lesser human species. They created the Bill of Rights and freedoms not to really include us at any point in time. And this is the idea that we were sold into slavery is very interesting, because Africans sold us into slavery, right? And also before that, culturally, a lot of other races were sold into slavery as well. We just lasted the longest because we were the most subservient or able to be browbeaten for the longest amount of time. They sold Indians into slavery, Chinese people into slavery, they sold Japanese people into slavery, Irish people into slavery. Why did we last 500 years, right? And it's because they convinced everybody that we could be fed to crocodiles and used for chemical experiments and Tuskegee experiments, and, you know, test all the AIDS you want and do all those kind of things, because we are a lesser valued commodity, right? And so I think if Black people understood that we are actually a highly traded commodity, and that they sell melanin on the black market for more than they sell gold,
right?
And like, and that blood diamonds are only blood diamonds because of the blood that was shed for them, and that the only reason why they have any value at all is because of Black blood. Like, if we understood any of those things in our culture, then we wouldn't give such like
more pride.
Yeah, we would have more pride, and also we would be less ashamed of our skin tone. You know, one of the things I fight in my business the most is the idea that Black hair is bad hair. Right, even though the curl in your hair came from your African ancestry, and that what makes your hair strong, the ability for it to grow well, the resiliency that your hair has comes from how strong the hair fiber is, and what it comes from is your mitochondrial DNA, which also stems from, you know. But if we were to really think about the fact that certain skin types fry in the sun, and, you know, are very, very weak systemically and all that kind of stuff. When we mix races, we get to see different bloodlines come together. So the strongest points of those bloodlines become the best parts of our...
I think I heard Farrakhan say once that you can make all the other races from the Black person.
Yes, you can.
But you can't make the Black person from any other race.
Exactly right. Which is why if you don't have any Black in your bloodline, you came from a cave and you're a troglodyte. So I just want to
What the hell is a troglodyte?
Oh, you should Google it. Well, a lot of people are going to be Googling that right now.
Troglodyte?
Yeah, troglodyte. And so if you...
I'm actually using the computer.
Yeah, I love it.
This bird thing?
No, not the bird.
Hold on.
So when you put, did you put troglodyte?
Did I spell it right?
Troglodyte, I think you did.
T-R-O-G?
D-Y, definition of meaning, they're down there. I think you have it right there.
This one?
So, yeah, a reprobate.
A member of any of various peoples, troglodyte. A member of any various peoples who lived or were reputed to live chiefly in caves.
Yes, so that's your people. If you don't have any Black bloodline,
troglodyte.
You came from a cave, and you came 35,000 years ago, not when we came. You understand?
I wonder why this... I mean, didn't everyone live in caves at some point?
No, definitely not. We were not that primitive there, bro.
Okay,
I think we also knew math and science and had all
so
those
we
things
skipped the
down
caves?
pat.
Is that what you're saying?
I feel like we might have. You know what I mean? I know that we definitely didn't live in caves. We had
It
homes.
wasn't a permanent thing.
And a stack.
You know, if you're like
the mud
making
huts that they show you were actually constructed homes that were made of mud so that we can keep the heat out. So I just think, like, when we really think about, like, we're going to cut this part because that was a lot. Oh my God, they're gonna hate me. Yeah, so I wish that everybody knew what troglodytes were, because then they would understand that if you didn't have mitochondrial DNA in you, then you definitely have a little trog in there.
Yeah, you know what? That makes a lot of sense that the study and the science of genetics is going to have some real surprises. Let me ask you this, though. Yeah. Do you think some races are better at other races in things?
Yes, I do. And I don't think it's because, like, God said, okay, all Black people can sing. No, right. that's not like, there's white people who can sing too, right? I think that some things are book and some things are born.
What does that mean?
Like, so sometimes you're born with a talent,
okay.
and sometimes you can read and learn a talent,
right.
and you can read and become a doctor, or you're just naturally an herbalist and a chemist, and you were already a natural born pharmacist from the day you're born. You have herbology in your blood. You understand what it is and what it ain't.
Right.
And there's some people who can heal people by using natural herbs and whatever, and some people who can write you a Xanax prescription.
Right.
What's more beneficial? I don't know. Like, at the end of the
So
day.
how are races different?
I think some things are inborn because of opportunity. So I will say that certain racial groups get more opportunities for better education, for not experiencing poverty, for having 2-parent homes, and all those things, those social constructs actually definitely create different like streams of influence, and that whole cognitive dissonance. Right. So we see what we see and we believe what we believe, but the truth is it's all basically nurture and nature, right? So if my mom was my mom was a hairdresser. When I was born, my mom was in hair school.
Okay.
And when I was in her belly, she was in hair school.
Right.
So I came out of the womb and I was like, probably from like the 5, I was like ready to do hair and makeup. I was putting on fake nails when I was 10. You know what I mean? I was ready to put eyeliner on my lips and go to school at 9.
Right.
So my mom really had to work on that. But I would bring home my friends at 10 years old and take them down to the basement, and they'd come up with a bob and black hair. And my mom would be like, "You're 10. You just dyed this little redheaded girl her hair. And like, how am I? Her parents are on their way here." My mom would freak out. But I was naturally born to do it.
Right.
And so when I went to hair school, even though I hated school in every way, I wanted to become a psychologist, but I could never sit down in a class and write an exam like that. Like, I just did not want to.
Wait. So you went to school and you hated it?
I hated it.
But you wanted to become
a psychologist? I was so popular.
So
yeah.
what were you studying?
I
thought you went to hair school.
Yeah, I did. But when I went and when I was in high school, they ask you like what you're going to major in, and then your last year of college, your last year of high school, you're focused on what your college is going to be.
Right.
So I was going to go into psychology. So I was very good in biology, very good in anatomy, very good in sociology, very, very good in social studies and English. Terrible at all the other shit. Like, what's a parabola? Do you know?
No, I don't.
What's a hyperbole?
Hyperbole is like, isn't it like an analogy?
Yeah, sure. What's the Pythagorean theorem?
Wow.
3.14, is that pi? What the hell?
Pi.
But A plus B equals C, is that whatever it is?
Right.
I don't know any of that shit.
Yeah, true. I didn't
do pre-calculus. I wasn't going to international baccalaureate math. They had handicap math and they had real people math. I did the handicap math. I did math 13. You know what I mean? I did math 23. I did math 33 so I could graduate. I didn't do it because I was like, I'm going to do advanced calculus this month. Sir, I'm Nigerian, but that was not part of the agenda. I was always meant to do something different. In fact,
I think you're an ESTP.
I wonder. Possibly. But what I will say...
That's my guess.
Okay.
ESTP.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that I always had a talent for like sports. I was always extremely talented in anything audiovisual, anything that where like you have to like market to people or sell something. People will buy it from me. I could sell a horse shoes,
right.
And I just knew that I was supposed to sing or dance or have my own TV show when I was younger. I knew people were supposed to see me. I just didn't understand what that was supposed to be. And my whole life.
And that's why I say you're an EST, because you're like a people person.
Very much.
And
an extreme though.
That's like you were good in social studies and psychology and the social aspect of things, not the sort of theoretical abstract.
No, when I was in hair school, like they'd be like, "Okay, we're gonna sit down and study this." I'd be like, "Can I just go cut the haircut? Like, I don't need to see all that. Like, just show me the angles I need to cut and let me go do it. Like, show me once, I got it. Like, you don't ever have to read this shit.
Right.
Like, how did you do it technically? Because I'm not really interested in all this shit. But then what I realized is like learning the science behind it is why I'm so brilliant now. I can figure out what somebody's hair is falling out and how to fix it.
So it was worth it?
Oh my God, yeah. But it was because of the African influence in my life that education is the key, that I actually went for further education and became a licensed trichologist, because now I'm respected on a global level and I have all of my equivalencies, right?
What's a trichologist?
So I am a licensed trichologist. So what that is a person who understands the study of hair and skin. So we understand basically like the things that a dermatologist understands. But
no wonder you know so much about genetics.
Yeah, I'm very, very intelligent in that area. Yeah. But the reason is because I'm very interested in that area. And also I understand dominant alleles. I understand because I want to understand why your hair is the way it is. Mm-mm. When you tell me, okay, I went gray at 20.
Fascinating.
Yeah. When you tell me, okay, I went gray at 20, and I'm like, well, start taking copper supplement. And you're like, what? well, stop your hair from graying, and then you'll be
fine. So I really need to listen to you then.
Yeah. So like, I think
I need to get on that shit.
That's a cool part, right? People don't respect hairdressers. When I came here, it was the first time I was ever disrespected for my job, and I had never really understood that they considered that like slavery work here. Like the people who make $100 a week are the hairdressers here, and so even the way I was treated, I was enslaved in several permits here by certain unscrupulous people, and I had very much like terrifying experiences because of the slavery mentality here. But when you're on a work permit, if you're on a work permit with somebody who believes that they hire Filipinos, Spaniards, and Jamaicans because they work for $6 an hour, when you're somebody who demands $55 or $100 an hour, you're a threat. You're not a benefit. And I didn't understand that because I was coming in like, let me just show you all the jazzy shit I can do. I've written a textbook. I'm famous. I'm a teacher. Let me teach. And they were like, we don't even have a permit for that. You know, even when up until last year, they tried to find me again here for teaching my hairdressing program. And I'm like, how am I supposed to teach people how to take care of their hair if I can't teach them? And they were like, well, we don't have a permit for that. We don't have an educator or hairstylist permit. Like there's no permit for that. And I'm like, well, why don't you create one? You know what I mean? Why don't we create a system that works to enfranchise the people that are here so that vocational studies is not something that you tell me when I go to open up a hair school, that's not something that Caymanians want to learn, when the truth is that they absolutely do.
I feel like there needs to be some sort of permit that is like the miscellaneous permit.
Totally.
Because like
all encompassing. Like I can do it all.
Or like it's like because like
in your industry,
right? Because in our industry we face the same thing with
like I'm my own receptionist.
We want to hire people,
manager.
But we can't,
right?
Because we don't have a permit for them. But it's like it's not serving any purpose not being able to hire them.
Right.
It actually serves a better purpose if we could hire them.
Right. But then they'll say that you should hire a Caymanian in that position, which is totally fine. Right. But if I could find somebody who could do what I could do who's Caymanian and I didn't have to teach them first, I would love that.
I mean, it's not like you're not trying either.
I do try.
And most of the times there's some good Caymanians.
Absolutely. But look at Carrie.
But you're dealing with the market at any time. It's a free market. So it's like
16 years that I've been here, Carrie was the first Caymanian, the applicant, whoever came. I had 3 over the course of 16 years. I had maybe 5 or 6 Caymanians that worked for me, which was amazing. I loved all of them, but most of them wanted to work for me in a front desk capacity. And that was it. Answering the phone, filing papers. But the job is so much deeper and more intricate than that.
It sure sounds so.
It is incredibly
genetics,
more detailed.
It goes down to genetics. Yeah. That's awesome.
So trying to understand like the how to hire in that capacity, it has to be an all-encompassing job. I would love to have a Caymanian that wanted to come and learn how to do hair and actually wanted to learn the business and from an entrepreneurial perspective was doing it so they could own a business like mine later. Because that's the ultimate goal, right? It was to have 20 carries.
Right.
Because I think it's so empowering in the community to not say, oh, well, there is no Caymanian hairdressers here.
Right.
Why is that? Why would you tell all of your daughters to avoid an industry that's worth $70 billion?
Yeah.
Why would you never want a slice of that pie?
Because Cayman's history is very interesting, though. I mean, like, it's such a big change so quickly that I don't think the Caymanians, we're still figuring it out.
Yeah, totally. But I think that's the coolest part about getting to live here. And honestly, that's one of the things that drew me to coming here. Wow. When I had lived in so many other environments, bigger places, way bigger places. And when I came here, it just felt like home immediately. Like I understood how to drive here. I understood the little local businesses. I understood the people extremely well. And it was very easy for me to assimilate into Caymanian culture and become Caymanian. And I love Cayman for that exact reason. But also because my Caymanian friends became my family here. And they're still my family here. And I have relationships with people who now their children are working in my shop, you know, that I've been doing their hair for 15 or 16 years. The babies that I was watching being born are now coming and getting services from me and graduating and going to school. And it's it's the coolest thing because in Canada, I can honestly tell you that outside of my family and like really, really close friends, I wouldn't have had that same experience because there's just so many more options. You don't see people as often. You don't get the revolving door of family. And like, and the better thing is when I'm sitting in my salon on a Saturday
That is the good thing about
every
Cayman.
person that's in there knows somebody by 1 degree of separation. I don't ever have that whole like my baby mother's in here and like so and so's ex-girlfriend, like that ghetto shit doesn't happen in my shop. But I get to see so many interpersonal relationships from bosses and employees, cousins, friends, people who've known each other and haven't seen each other on the island for 15 years, and they walk in and they see them in my salon. It's like, how did you miss each other for 15 years? We only have like 11 square miles. What are you talking about?
Crazy how it happens.
Totally.
It's like a little bit of everything. You know so many people. You run into so many people. You take running into people for granted.
100%. A million percent. And you really do, actually. And even for me, like, because I'm one of those like people who's an introverted extrovert, when I do a lot of peopling, I have to like turtle. So like when I go home, I just want to like cocoon into myself and not really deal with people anymore or whatever.
And that's the bad thing about Cayman though, right? So it's like,
it allows you to cocoon, and you can definitely stay. Yeah, you have to. Because people will be like, "Oh, I saw you. Oh, Bobo, I saw you by the gas station this morning," and you're like, "You was watching me at the gas station? Like, how did you cross and see me? Like, I was literally trying to be covert. Like, and then they're like, "Oh, but your tire was flat." They tell you all about your ass. They can tell you what groceries you had in the back of your car, bro. So it's just such a deep, like, an extremely
and that, but that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to start the podcast, because you don't know Cayman until you've been to Cayman. And
because you only hear about it in movies.
It's like a secret. There's only a few people in the world that know about Cayman. Like, there's very few Caymanians, very few people that live here, and of course a lot of people have left.
Yes.
And Cayman has a worldwide brand.
Yes, I do think so. The brand of money laundering.
It's not really
the brand of, you live in the Cayman Islands, let's go put my bank account there. Right. And that's like, well, that's not
our brand.
That's absolutely not what Cayman is.
Strange.
When I came, I thought it was like the movies. I was like, I'm moving to the movie place, because the only thing I'd ever heard.
That's awesome. The movie place.
It was the movie place.
It's becoming the movie place.
Yeah, because literally 100 movies, and you always hear about the Cayman Islands, and I was like, I am moving to the, like, you don't hear about the Bahamas like that. You don't even hear about Bermuda is the banking capital of the whole Caribbean. You do not hear about Bermuda like that. You only hear about Bermuda Triangle. When you hear about Cayman, I'm talking about Sopranos, every single good show, Goodfellas, like
Seinfeld,
everything. They're putting Cayman in it. So
everything. I mean, and to this day, it's
thousands
still going.
of references to Cayman, and I thought it was the coolest thing to move somewhere where we were famous before I was here. And then when I got here, everybody thought it was the coolest thing that I lived in the Cayman Islands, because all of the associations between living in the movie place and actually living, because people will always say Cayman is not a real place, and then when you come here you realize that it is not a real place. You're living in a simulation, but it is such a real place. Like, the people are so real, the experiences you have with everybody is so tangible, and it's such a hand-to-hand experience with Caymanians. That's one thing I absolutely love about doing
I remember
here.
like just being in the line with the governor.
Yeah.
She's like, you know,
chilling,
checking out her groceries, and I'm behind the governor.
Very cool.
And that's the Cayman experience, right?
You're like chilling with Franz Manderson, like at dinner, and like you realize Franz is like somebody super huge and important, but when you're chilling with him or Alva or any of those people who are like, laudables here, they're just so cool and chill. Like, they just want to have a drink and like some Ray and nephew and just vibe. When you go to Country Western and you pull up on them, you're like, oh my God, you guys still here? One time I went to station and I just saw a group of them posted up, and I was like, you guys are at the station. Like, I just wanted everybody to know that I saw this, or power supply or whatever. Like, I used to see that all the time, and I thought it was the coolest experience, especially because what we would consider to be a ratchet experience or whatever is just a culturally relevant experience here, right? Like eating turtle gumbo, or like people will be like, you eat turtle? And you're like, that's a Caribbean staple in the Cayman Islands, but everywhere else it wouldn't be a thing. Like, I go to St. Lucia and ask them if they eat a turtle. They'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? Right? So Cayman just has some really innate things that are so great about the culture here that I wish that nuanced conversation that we had the other day about that Samoan man who posted his video. He wasn't dissing Cayman. He was just saying that he wished he saw more of the culture here, which I do too. Right. When I go
like, who doesn't say that? Everyone has said
Nobody
that.
wants to see, like, in Jamaica, what's annoying now which was not the same way 20 years ago. When you walked down the street in Jamaica 20 years ago, there was different stalls for different things. One person was selling earrings. One person sold scarves. One person sold fruit. One person sold cell phones. It was like little mini businesses and little like tables and huts, you know what I mean?
Specialized, everyone doing their own thing.
Now when you go to like Ocho Rios or whatever, they have like a farmer's market with everybody who has the same Alibaba shit on the table. So you're paying $1,500 Jamaican dollars for the same keychain no matter who you're standing at their table. Which is so otherworldly annoying, right? That we've mass marketed Jamaican shit that Jamaicans used to hand make, and now that same handmade keychain that would have been worth $1,500 is now worth 3 cents, and you've made me pay $1,500 Jamaican dollars for it. So when you come to Cayman, what you're hoping to see is a little bit of what you see in the Barbados and Jamaica, where the tourist operators are not Filipino. And the people who are serving you in the restaurants are from the local culture and understand the local food. And that when you're going to restaurants, you're not just having international cuisine, you're having more local Caribbean fare.
Because ultimately that's going to be the best tourism product.
Right. But we don't have that here. We have the idea that we're the culinary capital of the Caribbean, but you don't see any Caribbean food unless it's Jamaican. So if you're me and there's not one single Caymanian restaurant in Cayman, tell me where it is and I'll go. Name one.
What?
Name one.
One what?
Local Caribbean Caymanian restaurant.
Cabana. Wow.
That's international fusion. And Luigi will tell you the same thing. Yes, you have some conch
sure, he puts a little twist on it.
Yeah, we have conch fritters on lobster. Okay, great. But you can still find that at like 50 restaurants here. What I'm saying
I think he's the only one.
Luigi's
I think it's the only one.
Okay. I do love Luigi. And I have to say that I ate thousands and thousands of lobster tails from Cabana. It's one of my favorite places to go in Cayman. And I do think that he is probably one of the best curators of his brand on this island. Right. And if I had to choose between Cabana and Rackham's, I'm choosing Cabana, right? And the quality of the food is better.
Right.
But I will say to you that the fact that we only have one to name out of hundreds of restaurants is the problem, right? And when we talk about the small business ownership, one of the things I definitely think that the Samoan guy was talking about was like, where are the Caribbean, like the Caymanian restaurants? Where are the Caymanians who are on the street selling their goods and doing the thing?
Because he did say he just didn't see them.
It didn't exist.
He didn't see.
I've never seen it myself.
He didn't see Caymanians.
And it's because of the shame that's associated with outside jobs, being hot in the sun and standing in the sun and getting a tan and all that stuff. That's also a part of the culture here that says that those jobs are low-level jobs. Right? When a tourist operator is absolutely not a low-level paying job, and you can walk away with thousands and thousands of dollars a month if you do it correctly, right? The people who run the tourist boats and operate the ferry back and forth and all that kind of stuff, tell them that they're poor.
You know what's interesting? I'm just wondering if none of this would have happened to Cayman culture, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing how it happened, but what I'm saying is maybe, and maybe I'm wrong as well, that none of this would have happened where Cayman sort of has this like identity crisis.
Yeah.
If the banking
industry didn't take over here.
Right.
I do think so, because what it did is it eliminated the idea for people to understand that Caymanians are not the rich people here, right? Like, yes, there is wealthy families here, and the generational wealth and legacy building wealth has definitely existed here since the very inception of the first business that was put on the island.
Right.
The Crichtons are evidence of that. A.L. Thompson family is evidence of that. All the Arch and Godfrey construction, like we've seen staples in this community for 100 years. But what I think the problem is that indentured servitude, the platitudes of permit situations, and then the financial sector taking over here is the biggest issue. How do we have 700 banks but only 7 you can see? You know, and then when you go to get a debit card, for the banking center of life to take a month to give you a debit card means that you had to order it from somewhere that actually had banks. So I just wonder sometimes if what we're seeing is what we're really seeing. Okay, we're off the gray list. Wonderful. What does that actually mean? Right? Because if you're still able to launder money here, does it actually matter if we're off the gray list? Right? If you own $1 million and you don't have to do all the shit that I had to do to get a bank account here, right? So like if I have $1 million and it's easier for me to get a bank account than you who has 1,000, I think that's a problem, right? But we don't talk about that. And culturally, it's a huge issue here. And yes, when you think that the people here are rich, then you think that they don't really need as much help as they actually do. You don't think that they need as many resources as they actually do, or it's more covert, I think. And I'm going to be honest with you, because we're going to have this conversation and this is going to upset some people and it's going to be an unpopular opinion. But I will say, as a person who runs a small business and as somebody who is a philanthropist in this community, I can definitely tell you that as an expat, I couldn't message you and tell you that I was poor and needed help here before they actually came and put me on a plane and sent me off this rock. I could never ask for help publicly without being shamed on Everything 345 or Moral Road, or being a story being put up about me and being publicly shamed for asking for help as an expat, because the expectation is that I should never need help or I shouldn't live here. Right? And so when you think about the people that are in need in the community, who would it be then? Right? It's not the 1% that are here that live in the empty apartments that they've built everywhere. It's not those people, right, that are just using it for PR. I think it's the people who are here that actually are in the 80% of the population that are here working and living that are neglected, but also it's non-negotiable, because once you told people that this is a financial epicenter of the world and that you can come and drop your money here and don't have to live here and you can get PR if you have $100,000 or $1 million or whatever, it's a becomes
a very attractive place to be.
But if I cannot get PR if I don't have $1 million and they hold up my PR for 3 years and give me a test that even the person who's from here couldn't answer the questions on, I think that it's a little bit arbitrary, right? And so I do think that there is like some subtleties that happen in this community that are not so subtle anymore and are very much entrenched. But the permit system gives them $90 million a year here, right, in their budget. So I think that there's a benefit to us existing and coexisting peacefully, and also being able to allow Caymanians. I loved when they had the business staffing plans here. I thought that was ingenious.
What was that?
That was back when like 2007, 2008, when I was here. I don't know. Kirk Tibbetts, I think, was actually in power then. But we won't talk about that. But also so he was involved in that back then, and they had a business staffing plan. And so as a business owner, you had to be able to show how you were going to hire and where Caymanians would fit into your staffing.
Okay.
So then, let's say if I was going to have 15 staff, I would have to have 2 right to work or 2 this or that. And then these positions were specifically intended for Caymanians. In reception areas and in business administration and all these different areas where they were really strongly held in positions, they had positions that were specifically designed for Caymanian candidates. And so expats couldn't be hired in that capacity to do those jobs, which meant that there was never a time when somebody was taking an opportunity for somebody to make them redundant, right? Or to take their position for them based off of a permit application being the reason why the advert is in the paper, right? And so what people don't really understand is how jobs are advertised to people outside of Cayman. Because when I was coming here, on every recruitment website in the Caribbean, Cayman jobs were the #1 jobs to get. And that was just post-Ivan. So there was hundreds of thousands of posts. Come to the Caribbean, move to the Cayman Islands.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? And so, and
we don't see that.
Not at all. They don't market your YouTube to the expat, right? They market it to you as a local. I also tell people all the time, I come here to work. Right? Like, I'm on a work permit. I don't have a life permit. Life is what I'm creating outside of my work. But the reason why I work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, is because I'm on a work permit. And my job here is what secures my life here. And without me putting in the effort into my job, I don't have a life here. That's what I'm guaranteed here. The only thing I am guaranteed in the Cayman Islands is a job. Right? Everything else, I've got to create it for myself.
How interesting. Yeah. Expats always say that Caymanians don't understand.
Well,
they
do.
They have it.
But they do understand. And the thing is that there's a level of entitlement that happens here on both sides, right? The white British people that come here feel very entitled to Cayman. And that's because Caymanians go to England and go and live there for free and get free education.
We got our flag on our flag.
Yeah, exactly. You guys are commingled, right? So is Canada. Canada's owned by the Queen too. That's why Caymanians can go to Canada and get an education same way.
Yeah, I tell you when because I went to the U.S. many times before I first went to England. And then when I went to England, finally, after being to the U.S., it felt like Cayman.
Totally different.
I was just like, oh yeah, this is kind of similar somehow.
Yeah, because
I can't put my finger on it.
The king and the queen right there. And
I guess that's right. You take the king and queen for granted.
It was so cool to me. I didn't realize that Cayman really praised the king and queen that way until I came here. But because...
we like the history for sure. I feel like it's celebrated.
Yeah, totally. It's very celebrated.
I mean, we sang "God Save the Queen" in assembly as 100%. Kids growing up.
100%. And that's a very cool thing to associate yourselves, not with the Caribbean aspect, but with the European aspect, right? I think that's also why things are the way they are here quite a bit. But I will say that there's entitlement on both sides, right? And that's because they're open borders, right? Like you can come there and go work and go live and get an apartment, go to the NHS, get your health care, do whatever you want as a Caymanian. When you get your Cayman passport, it has value there. And so does having a British passport here. Right? But if you're in Britain, like if you're in the
it's crazy how passports are such a big.
I would tell you,
like it's like a lottery.
When I told you when I married a Jamaican is when I realized that my Canadian passport was powerful.
It took you marrying a Jamaican before you realized that you're Canadian.
And I'm Nigerian, so you can imagine what having an African last name and having a Canadian passport is like.
Right.
They don't want to let you in, but they have to. They're like, Adenike, what's happening here? They're just like, how did she get this thing? They wonder, right? They just absolutely wonder. But I think it was very cool to realize how different my husband is treated at every airport and every travel experience that we have. And how much more valuable I am in society, even though we're the same skin tone and or he's maybe a little bit blacker than me. But it doesn't matter because the way he's treated is so vastly different. Every lineup is different.
It's so crazy how that is.
They hold him up like I could be holding like a gang of shit in my purse, and they will search through his shoes, his purse. He will have nothing. My husband actually, this is so funny. He actually travels so light that he like doesn't put anything in his bags because he's scared like when we go through that they're gonna just hold him up and like hem him up and we're gonna miss our flights and stuff, which they always do because he's black and he's a Rasta and he's got a Jamaican passport. So I always have all the shit. Like I have the liquids, I have the extra stuff. They will zoom me right through there. They don't even look at my bag. And I used to feel like I was the blackest person in every room until I wasn't a Jamaican. And now I understand racism and the cultural significance of your passport so much better. Because if I had a Nigerian passport I was trying to travel on, I couldn't go anywhere. I can go to 195 countries as a Canadian. I can go to 40 countries as an African, which is crazy. Why? But that's the kind of suppressive racism stuff that we talk about, but we don't really talk about. Why are Africans not allowed to travel?
And like Cubans.
Yeah, Cubans aren't allowed to go anywhere, but that's because
except like Russia.
Thank you.
Or like.
Thank you. Let's talk about why Cubans and communism exist in a way that we accept. Like, why do we accept the fact that a doctor can only make $100 a month? And why, like in Cuba, like the poverty is so crazy, but the tourism is so extreme. So like you're gonna go and see tourists there taking advantage. It's terrible food too because the quality is so low because the restaurants and business owners can't procure good food.
I know, man. It's obvious. They're just not getting good quality ingredients.
Their cows are anorexic.
Yeah, they really are.
It's fucking crazy. And when you go to places like that and you see it, and then you see the tourism aspect.
But why do they have the charm? What's that charm thing?
Well, first it's their Africanism, but also it's the fact that they have a culture, right? Like they have a really strong culture there. I mean, the music, everything, even the shitty food. Like, and I mean, Cuba food is disturbing, but it's a diarrhea basket. But
yeah, I mean,
yes.
It's
terrible.
Yeah,
it's actually terrible.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, Cuba's like right there.
Yeah, right there. Like tomorrow,
Cuba's
we could go there 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
Like it's
not even an hour.
It's just outside the trench. You know what I mean? Like you could just take a boat and get there. That's why the Cubans keep coming here. They're like, bitch, they can't get off once they get. I think it was so funny actually seeing that last little Cuban crisis we had. Are they still here?
I don't know.
Are they still fighting for their rights outside the public buildings?
I don't know.
It's a difficult situation because that little treaty that they made where they're like, okay, we can't send you home once you come. Yeah. Once you get here, that's why I think like for Africans, that's why they don't want them, because as soon as an African gets there, you're a refugee. Like, what are you going back to exactly? They've told you that you have nothing left. Like they do not want you back, and you don't want to go back. You're like, I'd like an education, please, and some food. You know what I mean? I just want some food. That's it. Like, I just want you to feed me, goddammit. Like, give me some damn food now. And I think like, if we were just to be able to make things more plain and straight, right? Like, everybody just had their creature comforts met. We would have no violence. We would have nobody robbing anybody. We would be in so much of a better situation if we could just get to the point where people had food, clothing, and shelter.
Equal opportunity.
Right. And the ability to become gainfully employed in whatever area you want it.
Like people can't travel to different countries. It's so crazy. There are a lot of unbanked people, like you were saying. Like it's harder for some banked, and then some who just aren't banked.
If you're illiterate,
and the U.S. dollar, like think about it, like
the U.S. dollar is going to fuck us
like
all
if you're not born in a country that accesses the U.S. dollar, you're at a major disadvantage.
What do you mean? Okay, let's talk about this.
Like it's just the opportunity is not equal.
The U.S. dollar freaks me out so much because you and I both know that unless you have gold of some kind, we don't have any value in anything. Are gonna happen. Oh my God, yes. Also, when they shut down our bank cards, when they lock us up the next time, we're all fucked, right? Like when the 5G towers shut off all the internet and they shut down your bank cards, what are we gonna do?
Crypto. That's why crypto's here, though.
When they turned you into a cashless society. Okay, so you can buy stuff online. Yeah, so I can order bento online with my crypto.
Hey, is that it's something.
What I want to know if I can order bento with crypto, because if I can order Hurleys with crypto, I'm good. But unless I can do that, we're all hooped, okay?
Yeah, not yet, but you will be able to.
Right? Well, I hope so. And I mean, it needs to happen before they shut down all the banks.
It's true. It's like
do us real dirty because like, they're going to. And this is
because like the banks see it coming.
Oh yeah, and they know, and they're planning it. The reserve. Listen, Bilderberg people.
Some are for
the
sure.
Rothschilds, they're all well prepared.
All the banks have their crypto divisions now.
Those big families are all well prepared. The oligarchs,
transition.
They're transitioning.
People still want banks, and people still want someone to hold their money for them.
I think we're always going to want that because we don't want to put it underneath a mattress and get it stolen, right? Or have to bury it somewhere to remember the coordinates.
Especially the more you get.
I'm a black ass MF who would bury some money though. Like I am a bitch that will bury some shit, and if you can't find
it, you got to diversify your portfolio. You know, you got to put.
Also, this is the year that I finally decided to start investing in other small businesses. So this is crazy for me. Like I'm ready. Like I never thought about it as a thing. Like okay, I'm gonna start investing my money, but like the fuck am I gonna do? Soon it's not gonna be available to me unless I do. And if I buy a house, it's not a real investment anymore. And they've been showing us very recently that if you purchase a house, you are not guaranteed. You know when we're gonna buy a house? As soon as all these people whose interest rates are too high, put them on foreclosure.
Right.
That's the minute I'm buying a house.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are of that same mind right now. When you flooded the market in Cayman 2 years ago, post-COVID, which didn't make any sense to me, right? People ran to take their pension and go and buy a home. And now that same home that you took all of your life savings and invested in is now worth nothing because you purchased $100,000 home for $1 million. But now the same interest rate that was once like 5% is just risen to a point where your $1,400 mortgage is $2,700 and you're stretched to the hilt. And for the average family, they can't afford a $2,700 mortgage.
Yeah.
Right. And for a 2-bedroom house. What the hell are you talking about? Since when did a $100,000 condo become $800,000?
Yeah.
And who made that rule?
I mean, I don't know if it's a rule. I think it's just the effect of the market.
Right. And Canada's facing the same thing right now. In Vancouver, you can't get a place to live.
And it's becoming increasingly harder. Mm-hmm. And the U.S. is going through that too. Like young people don't have access to housing. Caymanians know we don't have access to housing.
Most young people in America live at home. They can't afford to, or they live with roommates. They can't afford to live separately.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Yeah, I think that's because they're trying to kill the middle class, though.
I mean,
it's very purposeful.
You think it's purposeful?
Yeah,
it's
extremely intentional. Like, there's no way that you can.
I think it's a side effect of a different intentionality of money, right?
No, think about the businesses they left open during COVID and the ones that they shut down.
Like
every
what?
mom and pop shop was shut down, and then certain bigger businesses were allowed to stay open and operate, right? So liquor stores were allowed to stay open. And every other business other than food service was shut down, right? And the only reason why they allowed us to eat is because they know people don't cook here, right? But they like allowed us to eat, basically. And then they let us out for a specific hour. I literally felt like I was imprisoned during that time.
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone felt like that.
Let's discuss that for a second. How did you feel during COVID? How was your mental health?
I had 2 experiences. Great and not so great.
The beginning was great.
I can never remember now.
The beginning was great.
It might have been the beginning.
Being home,
or it might have been later on. I don't know.
Before I started watching the Reaper reports every day and stuff, and like paying attention to the press conferences.
You mean like the death count?
Yeah, the death count really fucked me up.
Like I mean,
couldn't understand why they were doing that every day, and I was just like, sir, if you don't damn stop, okay, I need you to stop, Alden. Stop that right now. Stop reading that.
Oh yeah, that was the local reports.
Nice.
No, that became something to look forward to.
That gave me so much anxiety. Also not knowing when we were going to be free, and then keep pushing the date and telling us like 3 days, and then it'd be like 3 weeks later, and so that really freaked me out because I need to know assurities, right? I had so many people messaging me being like, "Can I come to your house right now on my day and get my hair done?" And I'd be like, I live behind Funky Tangs, right? Like I live in Central. Like at that point, I lived in like basically a hut behind Central. That's where my ghetto story was.
That's where you experienced COVID. You were behind.
Real ghetto story. I was living my rock hole existence.
That's where you experienced COVID?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and my husband actually got locked over the border in Jamaica because they gave him a permit problem at the same time, and then he went to go fix it in Jamaica, and they shut down the border 2 days after he got there, and so he was stuck there for 8 months while I was stuck here by myself, and I was literally like in Funky Tang's ghetto,
right?
And those people don't sleep. And everything is interconnected, so they didn't stay inside. Also, so like this is the deep shit.
Right.
I was inside because I was trying to follow rules, which I'm not a rule follower. Okay? I am a Sagittarius, anti-disestablishmentarianism type of human being. Fight the power, okay?
Right.
And for my black ass to be stuck inside for so much days, and I would look outside and just see people just playing dominoes, and I'm like, "Where's the police?" Because I see a lot of people on Morrow Road complaining about people being outside and stuff, and I don't see them in my neighborhood coming to get them. So I was just like, why am I inside? Like, if you're outside and it's cool, but I realized that it's because the bobo and the bloods, you know what I mean? So I didn't have a bobo and I didn't have a bloods. There was nobody I was going to be able to bobo inside the police station. So I had to just stay my black ass inside.
Wow.
It was very hard. COVID really, really gave me a lot of mental struggles, and I realized how much of a people person I was, and also how much of an introvert I was, because there were so many moments while I was eating snacks and just like on the internet minding my business.
Yeah.
Where I loved the experience.
Yeah.
But then I would wake up 4 hours later and be like, all my snacks are gone and I'm still stuck inside. Like, this is terrible. I have to wait till Wednesday to go back outside and get snacks.
Yeah.
Listen, I would buy snacks for the week and eat them in a day. And I came out of COVID 451 pounds. Literally almost 500 pounds.
So your weight transformation took place after COVID.
Yeah, I actually couldn't walk after COVID. Like I couldn't bend down and grab things anymore. I couldn't breathe properly. Like I had drank, because I started this company, this group called Cayman Wine Fairies, and during COVID we blessed about 10,000 families with like goodies and like back to school bags and stuff for kids to keep them interested at home, and wine for the women that were at home with their kids and feeling really stressed out, and we would deliver them anonymously to their doorstep. So all the women would go into like the albums and they put their address down for each district, right? And then we would go as a group, like we'd have like 15 or 20 people, and we'd all volunteer, and we'd drive around in the night and in the day and bless people with packages on their door. This is before all the porch thieves in Cayman, because there wasn't that many then. And pre-COVID, there wasn't as much stealing and stuff, so we felt very comfortable to do it. And so that program was great. We actually ended up having like 5,000 women in the group, and people blessed people from all over the island. And so I kind of became known for that here. And when I did Cayman Wine Fairies, it was just a desire of my heart to bless people who I felt like would be inside and be as anxiety filled as I was and need the wine. But when I tell you that the amount of people that blessed me with donations for this thing, I was blessed with so much wine, like copious amounts of wine and food and charcuterie and different things. Bitch, I ate all of my feelings in COVID. Every last feeling that I possibly could have had, I ate it. And so I came out of COVID a fucking giant. I was huge. And I had to make a decision to change my life at that point, and so I did. And I did VSG and
what's that?
The vertical sleeve gastronomy. So basically I had like 80% of my stomach taken out. Which is like the big sack part, like the tube is left and then the big sack is kind of taken away.
Okay,
so
is that
it takes
right?
out where you have the ghrelin response. So for instance, like I haven't eaten today, and I'm not like dying of starvation. And for the last 3 days, I maybe ate like 600 calories. But for you'd be in starvation and probably really angry and whatever. But for me, I can only eat, like if I get 6 chicken wings, I can eat 2. You know what I mean? And so that for me is great, because not only am I not allowed to be gluttonous, because I am like seriously an obolobo, so a Nigerian queen. I'll eat everything. So like now I don't even bother. Like if it's cake on the table, I might have a slice advice, but like I'm not really too crazy about anything anymore. But for many years, I was very, very much like aggressive in every area of my life. Like I do it the most. You know what I mean? I would shut down the party and start it up. Everywhere I go, I shut it down. So when I came to food, I was the same way. I was just like very much like treat myself vibes. And so I became really unhealthy. And also I ate every feeling I had. Like I wasn't one of those people who knew how to express themselves otherwise. So if it wasn't like blazing, I was eating it. Right. And so I learned that those were my vices. And I made a change and I don't regret it. And I think that a lot of people will say, oh, you took the easy way out, but there's nothing easy about this route. I think that I work out 5 days a week. I eat right now. I take care of myself in a different way. But also that was a stimulus for me to create everlasting change, because when you spend $15,000 on yourself, you want to invest in that investment, right? You want to see it through. You want to make sure that you're successful. I haven't had any like post other surgeries, like no skin removal or any of that kind of stuff. And people really focus on the vanity side and they do it for the wrong reasons. They're doing it for male attention or the male gaze or for somebody else to give them a compliment. And what I realized is like now I experience pretty privilege in a different way. Like since I had my surgery, I've been on different podcasts, commercials. I've even been on Moral Road to do a show, which come on now. I've had a lot of different experiences that I wouldn't have been offered when I was fat. And so I will say that like, while I understand why a lot of people do it, I also think a lot of people look really sick once they've had my surgery and look drawn out and very old and haggard and very sickly. They look like they have cancer because they don't eat right and they don't eat protein and they don't exercise. And so they just get loose skin and jowls and look really weird. I would have died if I looked like that. Also, if I had like a gut that looked like a butt, or you know, I looked like a weirdo with like a giant hanging skin off my body, I would be probably feeling very different about my experience. But the way my God is set up and the way these African genetics were set up, bitch, my body remembered that I used to be an athlete, okay? And so those things were positive for me in this experience, but also going to Health City and experiencing how medical health care has changed so rapidly and so amazingly in Cayman. Like 10 years ago, 15 years ago when I first moved here, hearing somebody have VSG surgery here is non-existent. You go to Miami for it, right? You go to Miami for everything. You go to Miami to go to your Christmas shopping and also to go to any doctor. Now we can actually go to like Ocean Med or anywhere and get like a very high level of healthcare on this island that you could not experience at HSA. Like you went to HSA to die. You know what I mean? If you wanted to like not be sure if you're going to come out, you went to HSA. Now you can actually go to HSA and like walk out and be like, that was okay. That was totally fine. I survived that one this time. But like 20 years ago, it wasn't a vibe. You know what I mean? And so now I think it's very cool that we have like such a higher level of like healthcare here. I came out of my surgery amazing. I've gone through the IVF process here as well at Cayman Fertility Center.
Where is that?
That's actually across from Dr. Shetty Hospital. So up by Health City, across the street, they have this plaza that has a shop right in there and a few other things. And in that plaza, that is where Cayman Fertility Center is upstairs. And
what do you do there?
So we did a cycle of IVF actually just recently, the last 3 months. So I've gained about 20 pounds, which is making me feel super awkward, but whatever, we won't talk about that. The IVF process is so that you can try and marry egg and sperm and create a baby outside of your body and then put it back in. Right. So there's IUI, which is just like the intrauterine insemination, where they take your sperm and they put it into your uterus, and then like they let the things like kind of run and do their thing and create a baby. The other one is where we actually create the embryo and then they put it back inside you. So we went all the way to the genetic testing phase, and then it just was like, okay, these ones weren't the best egg and sperm, so you know we should try another cycle. But because I'm African and the way my spirit is set up, like no part of me really wants to spend $100,000 to have a baby. And I think there's a lot of women who are probably driven insane by the idea that they are not whole unless they have a child like that. And like for me, while I want to give my husband a child, I'm also 42. And so I recognize that my body only has a few more years to give me that. And if it doesn't happen, I'm okay. Like I'm not going to stress myself out mentally to create something that God didn't say do. And also like, I don't want to come out of my situation with mental health problems I didn't walk in with. And I think a lot of people are unwilling to accept that their mental health definitely plays a large role in whether something is great or not, or how you deal with it. And for me, like the disappointment was huge. It was like a week before my birthday when they called us and they were like, this one didn't work. And I was like, oh man, I was so sad for a couple of days, and I cried and I got over it. And it was like, okay, moving on. Like I have a successful life. I have a great marriage. I have a wonderful business. This is one area of my life I don't have, but if I adopt or we have surrogacy or whatever we do, that's really my business. And at the end of the day, like I'm sharing my journey very openly because I want other women to know that the veneers or the VSG or the IVF, like all those things are possible because of God opening these doors for me,
right.
But also because I live in the Cayman Islands,
right.
Because I would never have been able to create the type of wealth that I have been able to establish here in my life to be able to afford to do the things I've been able to do for myself outside of here. And that is a really, like, I think if people could understand the benefits that are afforded to us here instead of complaining about the things that we're missing, I don't miss not leaving this island, right? Like I haven't left Cayman in 5 years outside of going to Jamaica and little Cayman and Cayman Brac and stuff like that. I don't miss it. I don't miss it. I have lived elsewhere. I've seen what the big bad world is like. The little petty thefts we have here and the occasional murder that we have here is much different than 100 murders a week in Jamaica or the Edmonton being the murder capital of central Canada for, I mean, how many years was my hometown the murder capital of Canada? Yeah. Like it's ridiculous to associate like certain racial groups with violence and stuff like that when everybody has violent tendencies and shitty experiences and poverty, right?
That's like, one thing we all share in common is violence.
Very, very much violence. And the reason why we have so much violence in our communities is when you have impoverished people that don't have help or access to help, you're going to have violence occur, right? Like Jamaicans are very hand-to-hand people, right? And if you take away their ability to actually have commerce and interact with each other and make money, or you step on their toes or their ability to do so, you're gonna end up dead.
Yeah, it's a revolution, and that's the inflation problem. That's the who's in control of the money problem.
But we experienced inflation and recession many times in our society. I think now it's just because people are really more able to see it. Like we're seeing it more steadily and more readily every single day, and we're also seeing the young people be more hopeless, as opposed to more hopeful.
I feel like that's a new thing, definitely.
Yeah,
like
that is a big thing in our communities. I actually feel like you see a lot of people who are like either they come from a family where they can afford to send them away to school, or they are never going to get an education. And without an education, you're kind of limited in what our society tells people now. However, when you go to America and you see this entire generation of young people who all went to school till they're 27 and now they have bank loans they can't afford to pay back and student loans they can't afford to eat. They're eating ramen and chili noodle oil noodles and shit like that. Oh, let's make a ramen noodle dish with chili oil. Like, bitch, no, nobody wants to eat your macaroni and cheese. Like, no, I'm good.
And that wasn't the answer either, right? They were trying to cancel all that student loan.
Totally.
And I don't think they did they?
They're also trying to give black people reparations for slavery. Come on now, let's talk about it. Like, what? Like, come on, guys. Like, come on. I get it. You know, I mean, I'd like some too. All my family members were slaves on both sides. I probably get a little extra, but I'm okay with not allowing one generation to pay for 12 generations away sins. Like, we're okay with not doing that, guys. And also, we have the ability as people of color to make our own money and have our own enterprises. And some of the biggest billionaires in the world live in Ghana. Some of the biggest billionaires in the world live in Nigeria. Some of the biggest billionaires in the world live in third world countries. The idea that you can't make it out of that situation or do better for yourself is a really limiting one, and it's also something that is culturally very subversive and needs to change, because we can't keep telling people that because of their geographic area or their disparity, the regional disparity between their wealth, that we don't have the opportunities. Like, it wasn't until I met my Jamaican husband that I actually became financially independent, because he's brilliant, but also because he's so industrious that it doesn't matter what is broken, he can fix it. So I don't have to hire 15 people to do the job of one man. I just have my husband to help me, and in every area. I don't care if it's making a spreadsheet, writing a letter of intent, doing the financial stuff in my business. He's my helpmate, right? And so we've been able to build a business where I can do my job as the extrovert and the outward face of the business and allow my business partner and my husband to do their work as well.
Right.
And it's been phenomenal. But it was not until I met a man who understood saving, because I am a Canadian and we don't do that, right? Like Americans and Canadians and maybe even Caymanians too. I don't know if they're big savers, but Jamaicans are extreme savers. Like they will go without to make sure that they have that extra in their bank account so that they have that extra. They're going to be able to build a house. It doesn't matter if they do it one stone at a time. They're going to do it. And that's not the way that Canadians and Americans think, because we're instant gratification culture.
Spend it.
And we want to see that result of that spending right now. Today. We got to order it on Amazon and get it the next day. Even if you see me when the barrel comes, like every time the barrel comes, I'm like, barrel come! It's Christmas in July. Like I'm so excited when my Amazon orders come. My husband's like, why? And I'm like, because it took me a month to get something I should have got the next day. Like for me, it's so exciting when I get all of the items I've ordered for a month all at once.
Yeah, it is exciting when that Amazon box comes in.
Totally. It's the craziest. You just forget all the things you ordered because it's been such a long time that you're so excited to see your new earphones or socks or whatever it is and realize that you got it at such a less rate than what you would have paid here to buy it. It's like the greatest feeling on earth. And then you realize actually one of the things I've learned as a small business in the Cayman Islands is really a hard thing now, especially it was not the same before, is that the cost of shipping here is so high that trying to be a high-end business here and offer high-end goods to people of color on this island or anybody actually, white or black, is very, very expensive.
Yeah, it is expensive.
Yeah, if I buy something for $3, I have to sell it for $30 to make back my money once they've attached all their fees, tariffs and stamp duties and their executive fees that don't make any sense that they just created. And also I wish that there was more regulation about like how much they can change something in a year or two, because
change what?
Like they can change your lease and change the price of your lease in the same year that you have it. They can change the tariffs and fees on the CBC declarations, like went from 22% to 35% without anybody even noticing. The stamp duty's gone up for everything, right? And now they change it so your bank account takes out...
You see those bank fees, baby.
And then the banking service is such shit right now.
I know.
And like, so wait, funny? You didn't upgrade and you downgraded it and then you charge us more money for it? Like, I'm sick and I'm sad about that shit.
It's not like we're even
also,
getting a better
product. I still can't get a debit card the same day. You understand?
No.
So like, what did you upgrade?
What are you
exactly?
expecting?
I'm just wondering, like, can we get a debit card making machine? Like, can we invest in that, Cayman? Like, let's do something, because ultimately, like, I think that's a little distracting in this community when we're so far advanced as like a westernized Caribbean island, and then to have that soon come mentality where it still takes you 3 weeks to get your driver's license or whatever, like I like the fact that we're automating things. I like the fact that we're being able to go online and get your registration for your car done, because before you'd have to go sit in that terrible little room and then go around the back and pay $500 the same way for somebody to tell you that you need to go back and get one more film photo. So it's like so damn annoying, right? Like, and I used to think it was very funny how like you have to go through 5 different pieces of an industry to get one thing, but everybody needs their piece of the pie, right? And you have to keep those people from becoming redundant, so you have to make sure that their job stays important. So she has to print this piece of paper. Her job is to make sure that this piece of paper is printed for you to go and fill it out, and then the next person has to be able to answer the phone to tell people that they filled out this piece of paper and got that form.
I feel like that's the real war between people in the state.
I
feel like
I love it. Yes.
That's always going to be.
Yes, it's always how it's going to be.
The people want their freedom and the state want their control. And like it's the dance.
The marriage of church and state. It's also how I feel like religion has really screwed the pooch too here. Like, we're supposed to understand that God or a spiritual belief system is a relationship and not a religion, right? And we've allowed religion to segregate us even further than our class system and the caste system and all the other systems that have been put in place to keep us from loving each other. So like, if we get past all of the things like our socioeconomic issues, where we were both born, whether or not you're a Caymanian, I'm a Canadian or whatever, if we get past all of that, there's always going to be something else in the way to keep us from loving each other. And I think that that's how society is fucking us over, because listen, whether you love Muhammad and or you love Buddha or whatever it is that you love, at the end of the day, you are dealing with God at the end of your life, and your story is your story and it's intrinsic to you, and your belief system is your belief system. And I understand that, or your lack of belief, right? But I do think that anxiety that people feel so much in their souls nowadays is the lack of God in their soul. Like, it's the lack of having a spiritual basis to themselves. It's a lack of belief. And even though they will say that, they introduce Jesus and God to people to keep them bound, keep us mentally bound and in mental slavery and all that kind of stuff, I do think that God has given a lot more people hope than not having God has, what I mean? Yeah. So for me as a Christian and as somebody who loves God as fully as I do, I also recognize that I am the biggest harbinger of hope that I can be to people, because if you can see a poor Black girl who came from an completely impoverished family with zero opportunities being handed to me in any way, shape, or form, and I made it, anybody can do it. Right? It's literally just that belief in yourself and having people who actually believe in you as well.
Oh,
so important, right? I think that's one of the most important lessons I think I've ever learned in my life and in this 40-year journey, and I hope to get to like 80 or 100. That I think that's the most singular thing, is that you have to strip down everything from that and look at people and just recognize that we're all just souls at night, trying to find each other's energy and sync up. We just need to network with each other and take the great things that we all do and put them together so we can synthesize that into something greater. But because of selfishness and covetous, we've decided that we'd rather hate on what somebody else has and malice them for what they have, instead of looking at it and being like, I'm inspired by that and I'm going to go and get that for myself.
Right. Like a healthy competition.
Yeah. Also, I just want to help people get there too. Like, what's the point of me being at the table eating by myself? Like, I'm willing to eat by myself because I know what I bring to the table, but I'd rather eat with my friends. You know what I mean? When I had my weight loss, and this is one deep piece of conversation, I think that we'll have a little, I think you'll be able to speak to this too. When I went through my weight loss and opened my business in the same year, not one part of me believed that I was going to be truly successful at both things, right? I was like, I'm going to fail at one of these things. Like, I'm going to either be really great at the weight loss and really shit at my business because I'm going to be focused on I literally had my surgery in May and opened my business in June.
Wow.
And while I was recovering, I was doing all the renovations and everything with my husband and my business. And I spent down to my last $6 to open my shop. And so when I came out of that, I was like, okay, God, like, this is all you, right? Like, right now in this moment, whatever happens, this is all you. And I'm just going to go with the flow and try to appreciate this, because I need to live in the moment. I never do. I'm so like ADHD that I'm always thinking about the next 5 things I got to do. So to actually sit down and really think, and I prayed about, well, the one thing I asked God for in my business was a good staff, right? I had prayed about it, and I had decided that I wasn't going to have a Black business. And I want to talk about that because people always say like, that's so racist. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Black people intrinsically believe that we are less than, right? And so they'll come in, and instead of asking like, what services do you offer, they ask how much it is. And so by the price, they negotiate whether they're going to get the service or something, right? Whereas white people never walk into any business and ask the price of the service. They want to know the details of what the service includes, because that's how they decide whether it's valuable or not, right? And so I had decided very early on that I just didn't want to have a Black business or service Black people like that. Like I wanted to have like a West Bay Road business, because I wanted to have clients I knew were guaranteed money, and that I was going to guarantee that they would show up for their appointments and honor their appointments and tip and all those things that are not associated with our culture.
Right.
And so my husband was like, that's so super racist. And what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we live in the Caribbean, like we're Black. And I was like, I'm Canadian. I was like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I am Canadian, and we are definitely not doing that. And so we fought a lot about that in the beginning. But what I did was I prayed for my staff, and I asked God to go before me, because the thing about high staff turnover here is that you really don't get a chance to know people, and then they do become indentured servitude to you. And as a business owner, you either have people who are on work permits, or you have people who become your family members who are people you're protecting with their work permits and the like. And a lot of business owners start businesses here because they have cheap permit holders. I didn't want that. I didn't want people who are working for me for $100 a week while I'm making hundreds of thousands on their back.
Right.
And so I set up a system in my business so that my staff really become like, like a credit union. Like they get an opportunity to invest in the business and become a part of it, and their long-term association with my business will give them broader opportunities in the future for going away and getting education, taking classes outside of Cayman, all of those things. And we include education in our employment package. And so I realized that that's such a foreign concept here, but I also realized that Black people were, like, people of color, not just Black, but everybody was my clientele, and that I had been living outside of what my greatness was for such a long time, trying to make sure that I could eat, that I stopped loving what I was doing and was starting to focus on just what was going to make me money.
Right.
And without recognizing that those very same people that I was neglecting or wanting to neglect were the basis of my entire business.
Right.
And so once I refocused my attention and realized, like, I'm the only master stylist on this island. I am the only level 2, other than, I think there's maybe one other licensed trichologist on the island. And she's like been doing hair for like 40. I don't think she's doing hair anymore. Once I realized that I was rare air, I was like, I have a niche now. I can go forward and do this. My husband kept encouraging me to like focus on the curly hair because that's what I specialize in. And he's like, I was like, but they don't even like their curls here. They keep wanting to do keratin and relaxers and stuff, and they hate their hair. And it was like 15 years of me being told, like, I'm doing a keratin today. I don't want my curls. And like my work told me I'm not allowed to wear my natural hair. And this is unprofessional. And I don't do braids. I've never had braids. I don't want braids. And I was just like so like tired of that I just decided to do the opposite. And now that I have, not only do I have like the most successful salon in Cayman, and I can honestly say that, I'm the most successful hairstylist on this island and the most highly recommended. And the reason is because I just trusted God for the vision for my business. And now I have the best staff on this entire rock. When I tell you, I mean, people come from far and wide. They fly in to come get their hair done by me. And the Ritz-Carlton and other businesses will call me every day. They call me to try and get me to go do the famous people that are staying there. But I'm so fully booked that I can't do Oprah's hair. I'm sorry. Like, you need to call somebody else who's less busy. Because it's not me. And I love being able to turn down rich and famous people. Like, the fact that I'm that successful that I can say to you, I'm sorry, Badir, I can't come work on your movie this week because whatever you're going to pay me is 10 times less than I would make in a week.
Yes.
As a young person in my industry, going on a movie set for a week would have been enough to feed me for a month. And like, I would be able to like do so many things with that $1,500 or whatever. To me, that is less than half of what I make in a day. I couldn't imagine taking that opportunity away from somebody who actually needs to eat that $1,500 when that would be a devastation for me. I would literally go out of business if I took a week off to go do makeup on a movie.
So I did ask you to come on a shoot once.
I actually wanted to do it. I
can't remember what shoot it was.
I loved working in LA because I love doing hair and makeup for movies and films. Continuity is my favorite thing because it's very rare you can find a hairstylist who can do the same thing twice, right? Like, even, with filming, the people always look different the next scene because it's not the exact same. It's fun. You have to like figure out exactly what they did in the scene before. So I would like do the side, face, back, do everything exact and take all pictures of my work and stuff. And working in LA taught me how to do that. So coming here, I was like, man, when you started doing this, I was like, if I was in a different place in my career, I would have jumped on it. You wouldn't even be able to hire anybody else to do it. I can do the hair and the makeup. I can do it all and do the haircuts for the staff and all the people on set. So like, I thought to myself, like, it's sad that we now have people who you have to hire 2 things. You have to hire a makeup artist and you have to hire a hairdresser. Yes. Right? Like, why is there not more people like me that do everything? Right? And so I'm so grateful that God gave me the business that he gave me, the partner that he gave me. My situation in Cayman is wonderful. And I think it's not rare anymore. It's just something that should be the status quo, right? If you come here for 15 years, you work, you invest, you put in the work, you get the clients, you get the business. Yeah. And that is fair, right? Yeah. But for you to come here tomorrow and just pop up with a ice cream shop and become rich tomorrow, bitch, I'm fighting you. Yeah. How? Excuse me, Scoops. Like, what happened? You know what I mean? Like, how the hell did you have a line wrapped around your business the day you opened, sir? Just because you have Devon House ice cream? No, there's something different. And so I think that that's like the cool thing. Like, when you're not a multinational business and you don't have that kind of like investment funding that came from venture capitalists and stuff, the idea that you have to actually work. I worked for every dollar that I used to make my business. Right. I did it. I did hair. Like, I stood behind a chair and saved every dollar to open my salon. And nobody gave me a cent. I don't have any loans. I don't owe anybody any money, and I'm free and clear.
That's awesome.
And I think that's how every business should really start. Because when you start, my husband now Rich Dad Poor Dad has taught me that I should use other people's money to make mine, which I'm going to now do.
Right. You read the book, the audiobook, or you read it?
My husband actually forced me to. He read it. He read the whole thing, and then he was like, "You've not read Rich Dad Poor Dad?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Go and read it." So then I did, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like there's so many nuggets in there about how to use other people's wealth to make your own. And I was like, "Shit, I think like a Negro. I really need to do better for myself. Like think like a man and act like a woman. Girl, you better go get yours." So now I'm just like out here about to beast it, and I like invest in business and actually in some crypto and stuff like that. As a woman, there's a fear, like not just of the gym, you know what I mean, not just of carbohydrates, but there's an actual fear of business, right? There's areas where men go, and there's areas where women do not go in business, right? We just don't go into investments, and we don't go into things that we don't know, right? And now I'm willing to like venture into areas that I don't know and use the expertise of others who actually are well versed in those areas to help me, so I can take this blessing that God's given me living here, because I definitely believe that I am not entitled to this blessing. God definitely gave it to me for everything that I've been through, and I wear that as a badge of honor, because living in the Caribbean, especially in the Cayman Islands, is one of the hardest things that I've ever done, because there's so many stigmas and nuances and different things that you have to stick and move and drive to stay somewhere for this long and on a work permit, because they don't just be giving away PR, okay? So, I mean, I definitely think that the experience is very different, and I appreciate it so much differently than a lot of people probably do, because I know what it really took to get here. Yeah. And I'm so excited to see other people be able to build their brands and businesses and do the same thing. And I just support them. It doesn't matter if you're selling negligee or dildos, I support you, right? And you know, it's very cool. Today I had my first trans client come into the shop. And it was jarring because I've been here, 15 years and I never had that experience yet. And I know that there's people on the island that exist, but he was referred to us because of the openness of my business and the fact that he could come and feel comfortable. Even though there's Jamaicans there, even though there's all those things, he felt so comfortable. Her name is going to be Natasha. Shout out to Natasha. You are a whole vibe. But like, it was just a very cool experience for me, because part of me thought, like, I'm going to be judgmental, or I'm going to like all these little weird things. Like, just to see the pride that she felt talking to me about her transition and all those kind of things. Like, I never really thought that would be a thing in Cayman, because even in 2010 you'd get arrested for holding hands here and being gay, right, or whatever. And so like, there's so many changes that have happened here and so much broadening of people's minds. Not to say that their religion doesn't matter or your love of God doesn't matter, but I'm not here to judge anybody. That's actually not my job, right? My job is to make you feel beautiful, and that's what I want to do. And it doesn't matter what package you come in, I'm supposed to love that package and love my neighbor and treat people with that kind of kindness that we call Cayman kindness, and so I level that to each person as my mantra in life, to actually really show kindness to every individual that you come across, because we don't know who God is in, right? We don't know if we're turning down God when this person's asking us for 5 cents or $5 and we say, no, I don't have it, and you walk by them rudely, like that could be God asking you for that $5, and girl, he's gonna remember that, like, you know what I mean? So like, just chill out on the ignorance and just remember that each person had a day when they were poor, had a day when they didn't have anything, or had less than you currently have, and needs the hand up or the help out to be able to get to that next point, So thought it was extremely cool today. I also thought it was really, really, really dope that I represent my business in such a way that people feel so open to come in and have services done. And I mean, from every walk of life. I am not bougie. We don't have the work. I'm a little bit clatchet. Like, I'm a little classy and ratchet together. And I love that energy. Yeah, I'm clatchet as fuck. And I've been that way forever. I think it's the best way to describe myself. But I do think that's the best way to describe my business. I'm not for the bougie people. There is other salons and other businesses that charge you $700 for highlights. I'm just not going to do that ever. And overcharging you does, like, I don't know if the bleach has gold in it or diamonds or like what the fuck you're doing that makes you think that that's okay. But no part of me thinks that overcharging culture in Cayman is okay. And also like the idea that my staff should ever feel like they need to discount their services to make sure that they can have a client in their chair is also the opposite of what I want. So having that balance and striking that balance between being of value and also recognizing that your value is not in the one hit, it's in the repeat client is really important.
Recurring revenue.
Yes, it's my jam.
We learn about that.
It's my jam
in these places.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna wrap this up.
Oh my God, talking to you has been so dope. We could talk forever.
We could.
It's 8:00. I can't believe we talked for an hour.
It's been more than an hour.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's going on 2.
Stop it.
So before we go,
talk to me.
I want to hear about this painting that Jason Kennedy's doing.
Oh my God. Okay, so it's part of an art
And how did it
exhibit.
happen?
Okay,
Like,
it's so organic. Okay, so I don't know if you guys saw a few months ago, I actually had an opportunity with Health City to do a commercial.
I did.
Amazing. And Jason actually shot the commercial.
Oh, cool.
And so when he came, you know, like I always shoot like my clients at the shop and stuff like that.
Yes,
and
I've been on that.
Yeah, yes. And you were actually a very famous shot that I did. So the other day I actually got a message about 2 weeks ago from Jay, and he reached out to me, and he's doing a thing about people who are influential in our Cayman community. And he asked me if I would be interested in being part of an art exhibit and becoming a piece of Cayman history. And one of the reasons why he reached out to me is because he said that I am an extremely influential person in the community.
Right.
And I thought that was really cool. Like, what a compliment to be considered influential in Cayman, but also because of doing the right thing. Like, that gives me like really cold chills.
Right. Because you're doing you're being you,
authentic.
and then you're being considered one of the most influential.
Many years ago, being the way I am was considered a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. So me being as open and honest and forthright as I am as a person was not a great thing.
Right.
To be as influential as I've become because I decided to be honest about my story.
Right.
And my history and just tell the truth, right? Because a lot of people want to be the highlight reel of their life instead of show you the ugly scars, right? I'm willing to show you the ugly, the underbelly, the soft white underbelly. I'm going to show you that, right? And so he said that he wanted to feature me as an art exhibit.
Cool.
And so what it is actually like they're going to be paintings, and then each painting is going to have like an audio box where you get to hear the interview that he did with us.
Cool.
And hear the person talking and telling their story as a visual piece of the audio piece of the visual. I thought that was so fucking cool. And like, I'm just honored to be able to sit here and do this, to be able to have said that I've had the experiences I've had on this island up until this point is amazing, because before my story was so varied, people would want to hear it because they're like, oh, you had a man that was murdered, you had this that happened, and it was like, yeah, I did, but that's just one piece of my story. But at the time when it was happening, I thought it was the most important thing that ever happened to me. And now looking back, I'm like, I'm so glad that I stayed the course, came back to Cayman, never let the devil steal my joy the way that he intended, because I get opportunities like this to not only be the face of my business, but be a broader face in Cayman. And especially from an expat perspective, there's always this feeling of being a non-belonger, where I feel like the conversation is always like, we hate expats, but the truth is that that's not at all the truth. My Caymanian clients and family and friends love me, and I have 5,000 clients, which speaks to the point that like there's a lot of love here to be given from a lot of people. But we just need to stop having that segregated conversation, because we're all Caymanian. At the core of us, if you live here and you have intended your life here and invested in this community, we're all one, and we all deserve the opportunity to network with each other, interact with each other, and embolden each other's choices. That if we're supporting each other in our business ventures and in the things that we love to do, how can we fail? And so I'm floored by the opportunity. Jason is an amazing artist.
So when's he doing it?
I think it's actually coming up in the next couple months.
He's painting it.
Yeah.
And he hasn't painted it yet.
So yesterday I went and I did the photo I went with him. I went to the art gallery and he had it set up all right here, and he sat me down and he took a whole bunch of pictures of me. Actually, I was styling my hair into like a bun and putting bobby pins in it with a bobby pin in my mouth, like old school vibe. I think he sent me a picture of what he wanted it to look like. I don't know if I deleted it because I'm an idiot, but the picture that he sent me was of this old school art, and he wanted to recreate it. And I was like, okay, Jay, let's do it. And he literally floored the shit out of me. Yes, first, he's mind-blowing talent. I think there's a lot of you guys that are extremely talented here.
Jason's great, man.
So it's
His work is
kinda,
really
this kind of energy, but like with my colors,
cool.
all my rings and jewelry on, like super dope. Like and he really did it so well. But so
it's going to be on exhibition at his gallery.
Yeah, at the gallery, and they're doing a big opening, a big thing.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be like over the course of like a couple days or something like that.
When?
Like I don't know.
Okay.
I can't tell you because he won't tell me anything else about the thing.
See.
Once it's happening, I'll know more.
Okay.
So once the painting is done, I think he said he needs like a few weeks or something to do the painting, and then I'm gonna get to see it before everybody else, so I can see what I look like.
That's awesome.
I'm freaking out. Like he told me that he thinks that mine's gonna be one of the best he's ever done.
All right.
What?
I'm sure positive.
I'm so fucking cool. What even is this? I can't even believe it. Like I just think like, how did I get here? Like when I really think about my capacity to love people and like to do what I'm doing, I think God is just opening up all the doors that I thought were closed to me in my youth. Like getting to be on a podcast, getting to do like YouTube videos and stuff like that, and actually become an educator in the way that I thought if I didn't have a hair school here, was I actually really doing what I wanted to do?
Right.
And now I get to educate and inspire people in a different way, and I think it's just as important. So I'm just grateful. This has been the most amazing experience, and I feel like we're gonna have to do this again.
Yes, because there was a lot of stories there where I was like,
but here, listen, if we had one podcast where we just shared life stories, I bet you we would blow up Cayman. Like I don't even know if we would probably have to turn it into like a mini movie because the things that I would have to tell you are insane. So even though we only got to scratch the surface, I feel
we'll do another one.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. I have an idea for that one.
Okay.
And but like I just think like I want to share myself so much more with people and be able to have that experience, that interchange with people more often.
Right. And you know, that's one of the reasons I started the podcast too.
Amazing.
Because it's like, I couldn't really ask someone, hey, can you come over and let's talk about, XYZ, religion?
Yeah.
Right.
We can talk about religion now.
But I was like,
I grew up in a Muslim and Christian home.
This is going to be the next podcast.
Whoa!
It's definitely going to be the next podcast. Yeah. But yeah, just being able to talk to people. It's like, and if you have a podcast, you're like, oh, come on my podcast.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, okay.
They totally want to do it.
Yeah. It's like, but I just want to talk.
All I want to do is talk.
I'm just here to like.
Sometimes I talk so much. My husband's like, I don't know why you don't shut up. Like, and I'm like, oh, because I have so much to say. But it's like, I have so many of these life experiences and other stories and people's stories and getting to meet cancer survivors and breast cancer, like all these things that like I sit there at the end of the day and I'm like, did I just really have that experience?
Right.
Like that was the coolest thing I've done.
Right.
You know, I went to do a wedding the other day, and I did like these young people. They were like all like 27, coolest group of women I'd ever experienced. They were just so full of life, and I thought, I wish people could see more of that in Cayman. Like, I wish that you could see that women are all friendly and like they love each other, and people are getting married at that young age and loving each other. And there is real people who are not experiencing the Cayman curse and all these other things. Like, every time I go to have an experience in Cayman, I'm reminded of why I love it here.
Right.
And this is one of those reasons. It's because we're actually able to have a broader dialogue. And even though everybody always warns me, like, don't say too much, you know, like you're going to say too much. It's like, well, what if everybody's having the same cultural experience, why would it be too much to tell the truth, right? So I'm just going to continue to tell the truth everywhere I go and share myself everywhere I go. And hopefully that'll make the change that we're trying to say. Can we eradicate this? Well, if we have open dialogue about it and stop pretending like it doesn't exist, like if we just stop pretending like things don't exist and actually deal with them head on, I think we can.
Yeah. I think the dialogue's important.
100%. I think it's the most important part.
It is the most important.
Like, you have always been to me like such a visionary. And like, I think even when I met you 5 years ago, like when I realized how many people loved you was when I said your name out loud and everybody be like, oh, I know Badir. Oh, he's awesome. He's amazing. Oh my God, I love him. And I was like, is he really that fucking cool? I just met this motherfucker. How have I been here for this long? I don't know him.
That's true. We didn't meet till very late.
And how many people we actually know in our 6 degrees of separation?
Crazy.
It's insane that we never met before that. And then when I got to know your personality and stuff, I'm like, we have such a similar personality. Like, we have so many little things in common, and our sarcasm and sardonic belief system is exactly what it is. Like, it's so cool. But yeah, I just think like it's amazing to see you come full circle and to see the things that I imagined and envisioned for you happening now. is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Cool, thank you.
Oh
yeah,
my God,
it's fun.
You deserve it more than anybody.
Hey, I think, we both enjoy our lives.
Yeah.
We were both grateful for what we have. We both work hard.
Yeah.
And
we're earning what we deserve.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really cool thing. Like, when you really think about what builds confidence in your spirit, it is taking the thing that you're passionate, love, and is your divine essence, and living your soul urge in real life. Right?
Because that's the only way to be free.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Emancipate yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, once I realized that I didn't have to work as a hedge fund manager or like a pediatrician to be happy, I was like, wow, like I really took away the bondage of poverty from myself and opened up a completely different door. Yeah. And it was because of confidence, and when people ask me like, why am I this confident? It's God. God, it's all God. Whatever you see that you like about me is Jesus. Like, God did it. Okay. I'm just here as a vessel now. So I think that's the coolest thing is like getting to share God with other people in a real tangible way.
Right.
Yeah. I love that. I just so enjoyed this today. We're going to do this again, people.
Yes, we'd love to have you again on the In Cayman podcast.
Just invite me.
Thanks for being here.